Good evening. I'll call the meeting to order. Can you stand for the Pledge of Allegiance?
Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
Buenas tardes y bienvenidos sean todos. Tenemos los aparatos para escuchar la interpretación en español. Creo que todos los que los necesitan ya los tienen, pero si no los tienen, tenemos extras aquí por las puertas dobles aquí atrás. Muchas gracias.
Thank you. We have headsets for the hearing impaired if you need it. Introductions, proclamations, presentations, or recognitions. Dr. Cash?
Thank you very much, Mr. President. San Marcos student Angela Gladkick is here to provide the student report. And I probably mispronounced your last name, so why don't you already correct me?
Hello, my name is Angela Gladkick.
Oh, I was
You're
close.
right.
All right.
So starting with San Marcos, concert band, wind ensemble, and jazz band have their spring concert at 7 p.m. in the auditorium on Monday, May 18th. Mr. Oil will take place on Thursday, May 21st at 6 p.m. in the auditorium. Seniors versus Teachers basketball game is going to take place at the Thunder Hut on on Friday, May 22nd at 7 p.m. Senior Awards breakfast dessert will take place from 6 to 8 p.m. at the auditorium on Wednesday, May 27th. Now Dos Pueblos High School. Dos Pueblos, with organization from this leadership class, is helping to run the annual Chalk Festival. Winners of the Chalk Festival will get to compete in the Modenari Chalk Festival held at the Mission. Senior activities are continuing to take place with the senior barbecue, senior bowling, and of course sober graduation, all coming up in the next few weeks. DP sports have excelled recently. Swimmer Alex Valente was named Santa Barbara Athletic Roundtable Athlete of the Week after setting 3 meet records at the Mount Sac Meet of Champions. Walker Bell has also won multiple events. DP's boys varsity track and field placed first in the county, and girls placed second. DP just finished the elections for the 2015-2016 ASB officers. Interviews and applications for the next year's leadership class are approaching as well. Next year's officers are President Nathan Alvarez, Vice President Jack Burns, Secretary Nandini Braganza, Treasurer Ikian Lam, and Historian Trent Toyoma. Sophomore, junior, and senior class officers were also elected during the last few weeks. Dos Pueblos is planning a dodgeball tournament, talent show to raise money for the leadership class. The day will build off the intramural dodgeball games, and there will be lots of food, fun, and excitement. The event will take place on May 30th. Now Santa Barbara High School. Santa Barbara High School's prom will be held at the Montecito Country Club on May 16th. This year, the theme is Midnight in Paris. For the first time in recent history, there will be class Olympics held at lunch from May 18th through May 22nd. Each class will present teams to play against each other in the various games throughout the week at lunch. SBHS will be holding a game of powder puff football for the first time. Teams will be made up of girls from different classes to play flag football on May 22nd or May 28th after school. Also, our Alumni Association recently received an inheritance from the former principal, Claude Hardesty. He was a principal from 1957 to 1970. All money is to go to the scholarships. At the recent scholarship barbecue, all 50 recipients were surprise with $2,000 each instead of $1,000. And finally, La Cuesta and Alta Vista schools. Students gear up for graduation by hosting their fundraiser for grad night at Chili's Give Back Night. Please join us in eating at Chili's on Friday, May 22nd, and tell your server that we want your check to be donated to La Cuesta. 15% of your bill will help send graduates to Disneyland. All alternative ed high schools will have joined forces to put its first ever prom. Thanks to Alta Vista students of Middle College for coordinating this novel and completely student-run event. Prom will take place Saturday, May 23rd at SBCC Cafeteria from 7 to 10 p.m. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Great job, Angela. Casey testing is taking place today and will continue tomorrow, and this is testing for our 10th grade students, and it's also our last chance for our 12th graders. So we'll be thinking really good thoughts for our 12th graders who have not yet had the opportunity to pass the Casey. We've got a lot going on in our Parent Resource Center. On May 7th, Parent Resource Center held its first eating disorder presentation. Tomorrow at the La Colina Staff Lounge, our Special Education Parent Advisory Committee will meet regarding assistive technology. And from June 15th to the second week in August, our special education teams will be conducting a K-6 summer intervention program in reading and math. The last of this year's proms takes place on Saturday, May 16th. No pressure, Mr. Becchio. The first two have been perfect. Santa Barbara High School, and their theme is Midnight in Paris. I'm pleased to report that this year we have 9 Hispanic national scholars in our district, and we hope that they'll be able to be present on May 26th to be recognized by the school board. Smarter Balance, which started several months ago and seems to be continuing for several more months, is ongoing. I think as I visit schools, I was at Washington today, and I think I saw Ms. Lockridge here earlier, but I was at Washington, and every school I've gone to, principals have been so apologetic because I can't get into classrooms like I normally do because assessment's going on. And having a 12-week window of assessment is very different for our schools in our district than what we've had in the past, which has always been a 2-week window. Very, very different. Promotion and graduation ceremonies are just over the horizon, and we have the schedule on the back. I want board members to take note that the June 9th La Cuesta Alta Vista graduation will start at 4:15, so those board members that plan to attend will be back plenty of time to conduct our board meeting that evening. Professional Learning Week takes place the week of June 15th to 19th. And finally, I'm going to ask Assistant Superintendent Mitch Tarina to recognize 13 staff members who have completed 24 hours of SB 1626 school security training. This training represents a collaboration between UCLA Center for Public Health and Disasters, the United States Department of Homeland Security, and our school district. Mr. Tarina.
Thank you, Dr. Cash, President Herron, board members. I'm going to announce the staff who went through the training last fall. And believe me, this was a hard-fought training, not only to get, but also to achieve the actual certificate. This is an ongoing practice that a lot of schools and school districts are going through in regards to making sure that our campus security is a secured, safe learning environment. And so a lot of the information that these staff went through was you know, we're looking at ed code, we're looking at law, and looking at where their scope of practice can best affect our students and the safety on our campuses. So if you are here and I announce your name, could you please come up and get your certificate? Raul Delgadillo. Fernando Espinosa, Dave Feldhaus, Joe Garcia, Carlina Gonzalez, I said it right. Thank you. Pam Harper. Mario Jimenez. Marilyn Jones. Eduardo Lara. Daniel Martini. Daniel Mira. Rosalie Salvador. And Jessica Urea. And just to let you know, we will be offering the training for those staff who couldn't make it in the fall at the end of this year, probably in our PD week in June. Thank you.
And that concludes the superintendent's report.
Thank you, Dr. Cash. Any questions of Dr. Cash? Okay. Board comments and correspondence. Ms. Limon?
This past weekend, I had the opportunity to go to the AHA Sing-Off, and I had actually never been. And I was so impressed because it was a shock to me that students who perhaps are not the most outgoing, who perhaps have experienced, you know, different, maybe not always positive things in our community or on our school sites, were singing a song by themselves. I thought it was all group work, and I was blown away with the confidence, with the environment, with the support, and it really made me feel like, wow, I'm even happier to know that they're doing the work that they're doing in our schools, and excited that they're expanding to Dos Pueblos High School, because I was blown away, and I actually have to give all of the student presenters and singers amazing credit, because I do not know if I could ever do something like what they did. So I was really blown away, and really it just felt good to know that they're doing good work in our schools. They had the attendees sit in peace circles, and so it was good.
You have a year to prepare for next year.
I think our mayor takes that one. Yeah, I was shocked. I was like, wow, they're singing by themselves.
I'll go through my list. We were fortunate to have 35 of our high school students go to the UCSB Economic Forecast Project. This is like the 8th year in a row that they've had that opportunity. And from all the response I got back, everyone really enjoyed it, and it was nice to have all of our high schools represented. This was obviously Cinco de Mayo week, and I happened to get to Harding and thoroughly enjoyed. In fact, the theme on all of these that I enjoyed was the family. To see all the families present, working in many cases, helping, and then just having fun with their kids. But Harding, Santa Barbara Community Academy, Monroe, Cleveland, Cleveland tied theirs with the ICANN art show, and to see the artwork of all the children, to me, is always a highlight of that kind of an event. We also had a special principals session, a full day of principal training by Alan November, and he talked to them about how do you integrate, you know, it wasn't that long ago we had lousy technology. Now we have great technology, and now the topic is how do you use it with teachers to properly educate our children. So he spent a day with the principals on the basis that they better know it, how to do it, so that when they deal with their teachers, they can at least appear a little bit intelligent on technology. And so they had a whole day to learn, so I hope they did. But instructional use of technology. How should teachers use it? How should principals understand it? Roosevelt had, and I think Harding had it too, but I didn't get to Harding, but they had the Harlem ambassadors come and give an assembly for all the students at the school. And it was basically self-esteem and anti-bullying, and how do you get out of your comfort zone. And they had the teachers up in front of the students totally out of their comfort zone, which was a new experience for the teachers. And the kids really enjoyed it, and they were great ambassadors. We had a Carpinteria Santa Barbara CC joint trustee meeting up at City College, talking about a lot of things of common interest, dual enrollment, tech courses. It was a good informational discussion with the other trustees. And then we also went to the Star Awards, where the district honored 40 teachers and classified members, 2 from each school. And it was a wonderful event, and I thank the staff for putting that on behalf of us and recognizing some real stars. This is the second year we've done that, and I'm sure it's going to be ongoing forever because it's just a great event, and I know our staff appreciated it. As far as correspondence go, we did have a letter from Dr. Ebenstein talking about portables, talking about bond issues, and if anybody wants to have a copy of that, I have a copy of it. He always likes to talk to us about those kinds of things. And we have a facilities meeting next week, and so it was I think it was in conjunction with that. We had a letter from SBCEO, the County Education Office, in essence saying that our monthly year employment agreement projected to meet the minimum state recommendations. So thank you, Mr. Tay, for doing everything correct so we get SBCEO's approval, and appreciate receiving that kind of a letter. And then I saw correspondence, and we have the principal of San Marcos here, but he's honored, his school is honored with the California Gold Ribbon Schools Program, recognition of the PEAC program. That's P-E-A-C. Anybody know what that stands for? If not, I'll tell you. Program for Effective Access to College. So congratulations, San Marcos, Ed, and Joanne Keynes. We appreciate it. Thank you. We had a closed session, but we have nothing to report from that. We have a couple cases that will be voted on later on the agenda. Public comments? Dr. Paz.
We have a number of public comments. I think we have like about 7. So the first speaker, I'll announce our first speaker and then the second one as well. And so be ready. You'll have 3 minutes. I'll give you a 30-second warning, okay? So the first speakers are John Esteban Carlos and Guillermo Lopez. I think it's 2. And this will be followed by Gustavo Murataya. Murataya.
Hi, my name is John Esteban Carlos. I'm in 9th grade and I attend Dos Pueblos High School.
My name is Guillermo Lopez. I'm in 9th grade and I attend San Marcos High School, and we're part of Future Leaders of America.
Currently, high school students in the SBUSD do not have access to counselors they need. The ratio of counselors to students is very high, and often students only get to visit their counselor once a year. Latino students in particular need access to counselors that can speak Spanish and guide parents and families in their native language.
We, students and parents, urge the Santa Barbara Unified School District to hire more counselors for each high school so that students have the appropriate support to go to college and pursue successful careers after high school. You will hear more testimonies from our peers throughout public comment.
Gustavo Murataya, followed by Monica Diaz.
Hi, my name is Gustavo Murataya from Dos Pueblos High School, and we've been taking some statistics lately and throughout the year, and some of the statistics we have for you today is that we have 6,259 students throughout all 3 high schools in the Santa Barbara Unified School District, and throughout all those 3 schools we only have 17 counselors. Well, for me, I honestly don't believe that's enough counselors for 6,000 and almost 360 students. And in 2013, 2014, in the academic school year, 416 Latina students dropped out countywide. Also, in this pie chart right here, the SBUSD has 272 Latina students. That's 41% of 41%, and and then the other 59%, 632, 1%. That is throughout our whole SB, or throughout the whole county, that is Latino and non-Latino students. We also have 29% of Latino students completing the California A through G requirements. And also we have 100 Latino students going into the elementary school system, and then only 46 of those graduating high school, and 26 of them enroll into a 4-year, or they roll into a university, and then 17 go to a community college or city college, and only 1 transfers into a 4-year college, while only 9 go into a 4-year college, and then 8 further down, 8 graduate, get their bachelor's degree, and then 2 earn a professional degree, and then 0.2 graduate with a doctorate degree. And for me, I don't think that's not even a person. To honestly say, it's 0.2%. So I think those need to change, and I think getting with counselors will help us improve these stats. Thank you.
Thank you. Monica Diaz.
Could you make sure we get copies of those stats? Thank you.
Monica Diaz, followed by Maria Naranjo.
Hello, my name is Monica Diaz. I'm a senior at San Marcos High School. I'm in a program known as Thrive or Posse, which works with AVID and helps guide us to a 4-year college. In the program, we have a counselor to ourselves. We get all the attention that we need in order for us to know what credits we are missing, what we could do to have a clear path to our future. Ms. Ramirez, our counselor, always tells us what we are missing and what we need to get done. Our counselor is always there to listen to us, and if she happens to be too busy, it is because she is helping other students or consulting with parents. Because of our counselor support, our parents are on top of our schoolwork. She lets them know of everything that is going on with our schedules and what we are lacking. My mom personally likes to go to her because when she calls her in to consult with her, she speaks Spanish and my mom actually understands her. There are other students and parents that do not have the same opportunities. Some counselors are almost always hard to find, and when they do call in parent meetings, they do not always know Spanish. So many parents leave the meetings confused about what the whole meeting was about. We need more counselors like mine in all the schools to get more students off to college and headed to a greater career. Thank you.
Thank you. Maria Naranjo, followed by Denison, I'm pronouncing it wrong, Denison Alvarez.
Muy buenas tardes, mi nombre es María Naranjo y soy madre de 3 hijos. Soy una madre que ha estado involucrada en la educación de mis hijos desde que empezaron preschool. Para mí, como para otros padres de familia, no se nos ha hecho fácil cuando nuestros hijos ingresan a high school, porque se nos ha hecho difícil que nos comprendan y a la vez que ayuden a nuestros hijos, motivándolos y guiándolos para poder obtener una buena educación universitaria. Nosotros necesitamos más consejeros hispanoparlantes que mantengan una mejor comunicación con nosotros y con nuestros hijos. Cuando nuestros hijos están en high school, se requiere que se hagan citas con sus consejeros por lo menos cada 3 meses para hacer su plan de estudio. Y hemos tenido la experiencia que los consejeros tienen un gran número de estudiantes que no le pueden ayudar como es debido. En otras palabras, queremos subir el índice educacional, especialmente a nuestros hijos hispanos. También necesitamos que se nos eduque tomando cursos como MALDEF, PIQUE, etc., donde tengamos más información sobre las clases que tienen que tomar de la A a la G para poder ir a la universidad. Queremos que pongan a nuestros hijos de acuerdo a lo que van a estudiar y no poner estudiantes en una clase nada más para llenarla. Finalmente, doy las gracias por permitirme hablar en este foro. Creo en la igualdad democrática educacional de este distrito escolar y necesitamos una enmienda educacional urgentemente. Gracias.
Good evening. My name is Maria Naranjo. I am a mother of 3 children. I have been involved in my child's education since they started preschool. For me, as for other parents, it hasn't been easy when our children go into high school, because it's been difficult for us to understand what kind of help our kids need and how to motivate them and guide them so that they can get the best education and eventually go to the university. So we need more counselors who speak Spanish so that they can have good communication with us and with our children. When our children are in high school, they need to make appointments with their counselors at least 3 months in advance in order for them to plan out their studies. And our experience has been that the counselors have a large amount of students and they can't do their job as they should be. So in other words, we would like to increase the amount of education for our children who are Hispanics. We also need more courses for parents like MALDEF and PIQUE, etc., where we have more information about the classes that our students have to take, the A through G requirements, so that they can get into the university. So we want our kids to take the classes according to what they want to study and what they are going to study, and not just put students in classes just to fill them up. So lastly, I want to thank you for allowing me to speak in front of you, and I believe in democratic equality in education. And I know that this is what this district is all about, and we need more counselors, and we need to make educational changes urgently. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Denelson Alvarez, and I am a sophomore at Dos Pueblos High School. And currently I'm enrolled in the class AVID, and in AVID they help us achieve our goal to get to a 4-year college. And in AVID they assign us one counselor, and at Dos Pueblos that is Ms. Perez for AVID 10. And Ms. Perez is a really helpful counselor because she is one of the 2 bilingual counselors at our school, and it makes it easy for parents. For example, my mom has made an appointments with her to plan out what my classes will be throughout high school so I can be successful. And she is always very active with AVID students. Just last week, she called me into her office, and she told me that I needed to take higher level classes, and she enrolled me in higher level classes for next year. And that made me feel really comfortable with her because I know that she is aware of our education, and she is always trying to encourage us to do better. And that's the kind of counselors we need, and there's very few of them. So that's why we need more counselors like her. Thank you.
Marisol Lopez, followed by Carmen Magallanes.
Hola, muy buenas tardes. Mi nombre es Marisol López. Yo soy madre de 4 hijos, por supuesto diferentes edades, ¿verdad? Diferentes escuelas también. En mi situación, bueno, yo siempre he sido una madre que he estado pendiente desde que pisaron por primera vez a la escuela. Mis niños más pequeños han estado en early years, en diferentes tipos de escuelas. Como comentaba, siempre he estado pendiente desde los primeros días hasta ahorita, pero en este caso se me ha hecho un poco más difícil estar tan pendiente de mi hijo el mayor que está en la high school por el problema del lenguaje. Yo hablo un poco el inglés, lo entiendo un poco, pero no el 100%. Por esta misma razón de que no lo entiendo el 100%, no me siento muy cómoda al ir a la escuela y pedir alguna información referente a nuestros hijos. Por esto mismo estoy apoyando esta situación de que queremos más consejeros de habla hispana para que nosotros como padres estemos más informados, tanto como de los logros de nuestros hijos, como los problemas que ellos puedan enfrentar en la escuela. Problemas tal vez que bajan de grados, problemas que se les dificulte, a alguna materia que sea más difícil para ellos, o problemas de conductas. Muchas veces no estamos enterados de esto, y si estamos, no ponemos nuestro mayor esfuerzo porque no nos sentimos cómodos al ir y hablar con los maestros, al tener que estar hablando a través de un traductor. No es lo mismo como ir y preguntar todas las dudas que yo tengo, el orgullo, se puede decir también, todos los problemas que tenemos directamente con los maestros. Aparte de que siempre como madre he estado pendiente de ellos, también pienso que es es más seguro y efectivo también, ahora que están en la high school, estar el 100% en contacto, el 100%. Así yo puedo saber de qué forma lo puedo apoyar a él. A través de los maestros.
30 segundos.
A través del counselor. Con esto no estamos diciendo nosotros que los counselors no están haciendo su trabajo. Ellos están haciendo su trabajo, pero como se ha dicho antes, no son suficientes para nuestros hijos, para el nivel de estudiantes que tienen, para el total de estudiantes que tienen, no son suficientes. Entonces, sí creo que es muy necesario que contemos con más counselors de habla hispana con nosotros. Muchas gracias por escucharme.
Gracias.
Gracias.
So good afternoon.
Marisol Lopez.
My name is Marisol Lopez, and I have four children in the district, and of course they're all different ages, so they go to different schools. And I've always been participating in my children's education ever since they were like in the preschool level. And so I see that there's a lot of issues, especially with my son that's in high school. So once they reach high school, it's a lot harder for parents to get involved. Like for me, I understand some English and I speak some English, but I don't feel 100% with the language. So it's hard for me to go to the school and communicate with teachers and counselors and staff members. I mean, they do have interpreters available, but it's not the same sometimes to speak directly to the counselors and the teachers. So what we're asking is to have more counselors that speak Spanish. And it's not that we're saying that the counselors are not doing their job, they just have too many students. And not enough of them speak Spanish, not enough of the counselors speak Spanish so that we feel comfortable enough to go and talk to them directly.
También para lograr el triunfo de nuestros hijos necesitamos estar en contacto directo sin necesidad.
So in order for our students to really achieve academically, we as parents need to be involved and we need to be in contact with the teachers and the counselors at the school sites. Thank you.
Thank you.
How many more are there?
2 more.
Okay. We had a public meeting, a public session called for 6:50, which was a time certain, but we didn't make it. I'm going to let public comment go forward, and then if there's is there anyone in the audience who, by waiting another 5 or 10 minutes for the public meeting, is going to be unhappy? I mean, no? So we're going to go ahead with this. We'll take another 5 minutes after this for the next items, and then we'll get to the public hearing.
So Carmen Magallanes, followed by Oscar Rojas Suárez.
Queridos miembros de la mesa directiva de educación y público en general, mi nombre es Carmen Magallanes, soy madre de familia en Dos Pueblos High School. Esta noche vengo a pedirles sobre las aptitudes que necesitamos que tengan los consejeros de nuestros hijos en las secundarias. Primero, que estén preparados para apoyar en las necesidades de nuestros estudiantes. Segundo, que estén preparados culturalmente para ayudar a los chicos de diferentes culturas. Y que alguien esté monitoreando el trabajo de los consejeros que ya tenemos en nuestras escuelas, que den la información a los padres y a los estudiantes, porque por eso se caen nuestros chicos en sus grados por falta de información y apoyo de los que tienen la información, que son los consejeros. Gracias, buenas noches.
Dear members of the school board and the public in general, my name is Carmen Magallanes, and I am a mother of a student that goes to Dos Pueblos High School. And tonight, I come here before you to ask you about the skills that we need to have. We need our counselors to have these skills with our children that go to high school. Number one, we want them to be prepared to support the needs of our children. Number two, we want the counselors to be culturally prepared to help all the students from different cultures. And we also want someone to be monitoring the work that the counselors perform, because in a lot of our schools, they're the ones that give the information to parents. And so we want the counselors to give more information to parents and also to the students. Because when our students get lower grades, that's because they don't have the information. And the people who have that information are the counselors. Thank you. Have a good night.
Oscar Rojas Suarez.
Hi, my name is Oscar Rojas Suarez. I'm a freshman at Dos Pueblos High School, and I believe that schools should have more counselors at them. Right now, most students don't have the ability to check in with their counselors more than once a year, and the same with parents. Parents don't even get the chance to meet the students' counselors. From my experience, most Latino students and parents don't go to the counselors that they provide at Dos Pueblos. Most go to Linda Ureña, a person that isn't even a counselor, but she still gives advice to both students and parents. We Future Leaders of America invite the school board members to talk more about more counselors at the high schools. Thank you.
Thank you. That's the end of public comments.
Thank you all. We're dealing with the LCAP tonight, Local Accountability Plan, and that's the perfect time to talk about counselors at some point, so we'll see. DA, acceptance of donations for May 12th, 2015.
I move to accept with gratitude.
Second. Discussion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Consent calendar.
Move to approve the consent calendar.
I'll second.
Discussion. Dr. Cash?
Thank you very much, Mr. Herron. On the consent calendar, board members may have noted that we are promoting one and changing the assignment of another of our great staff in our district. Aaron Harkey, who has been a teacher on special assignment doing incredible work in AVID and restorative approaches, is being promoted to assistant principal at La Colina Junior High School. I want to congratulate Aaron and wish him well in his new journey as an assistant principal at La Colina. And the gentleman sitting right behind you, Mr. Garcia, can tell you exactly what to expect from Mr. Ortiz. And we also, on the personal action form, is the the movement of Mauricio Ortega from Santa Barbara Junior High School as an assistant principal to Santa Barbara High School as an, as an assistant principal. And you can see by Mr. Becchio's spontaneous applause how excited he is, and by Mr. Garcia's the look on his face how disappointed he is to lose someone like Mr. Ortega. I'd like them both to stand and be recognized as two great leaders in our school district. Thank you, Mr. Herron.
Thank you, Dr. Cash. I told Dr. Cash I wouldn't vote for Aaron Harkey. We need him as a TOSA in science and Avid and everything else. But Dr. Cash twisted my arm and agreed to let me vote for him. So I appreciate that very much. Any other discussion? Congratulations to both of you. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? The consent calendar is approved. Okay. I did want to, I forgot to mention, the Independent. I just want to thank the Independent. They have a tremendous pages of articles from OAS, the Open Alternative School. If you want to see the work of the children at that school and of the principal and the staff writer talking about OAS, it's a great document to get on the newsstands now. So thank you, Independent. We have a public hearing at 6:50 on the Local Control Accountability Plan. Students, if you would like to go home and get your homework done, you're more than like, you can be excused, but if you want to hear this for another half hour, go ahead, okay? It is important because it tells you how we're spending the money, or thinking about spending the money for next year. And that's a very important aspect of this whole function. Dr. Cash.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. As board members are aware, the Local Control Accountability Plan came about as a result of the shift in funding from the revenue limit formula, which Santa Barbara Unified School District had predominantly, basic aid, which still exists, and created an entire new accountability platform by which every school and school district would be held accountable for how it expended its money, in particular to support English learner students, students living in poverty, and foster youth. The LCAP process is an arduous process that requires multiple meetings, lots of input. I have met with our LCAP PAC. Our DLAC will be, has participated. Each school site has held meetings with staff, students, in relationship to receiving input. Our principals provided input at a meeting. All of them met and prioritized the items that they were most interested in seeing move forward. And we also have an LCAP committee that has met religiously throughout the year. In addition to that, the LCAP draft has been posted on our website, and we're receiving input from our community via the website, and I would welcome anyone to go to our district's front page, find the Local Control Accountability Plan, and click and follow to the plan, read it, and provide us with input. Tonight is our first public hearing, and Dr. Drotti is going to take the lead as he is the chairperson of our LCAP committee. And with that, I'll turn it over to Dr. Drotti.
Thank you, Dr. Cash, and good evening, Governing Board members. There are several, there's one other document that you have in your hand I want to point your attention to. There's a PowerPoint, obviously, you have in your hand that I'll go over, and then there's another document that has a spreadsheet of all the expenditures that we have identified. So the PowerPoint won't have specific amounts. It won't show specific amounts for each item, but the spreadsheet does. With that said, the last time we brought the LCAP to you, as Dr. Cass mentioned, we have engaged the community in numerous conversations, and but the last time we identified numerous things that we wanted to do in the LCAP, and the conversation was, where can we do it all? And it was very clear that we couldn't do it all, so we needed to have another set of conversations about prioritizing and what we feel that we need to continue to do, what we did this year, what we feel that we need to continue to do, what we feel that we need to drop, and also what we added. So the presentation tonight is organized in that way. So I'll just start by listing all the things that we did in 2014-15, and then we'll transition from there. I guess yes.
Will these second two documents be on the website eventually?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
They might be on it already.
It'll be on there by tomorrow. So the first set of items that we want to identify are the things that we did in 2014-15, and I don't know if I need to list every one of them, but I think I'll just kind of skip through some of those for the sake of time. And if there are those that are of interest in people, they can you can at least ask me, and I'll repeat those. So. Class size reduction is one item that we wanted to continue that we did last year. It's always been a part of our system. Under the LCAP, Local Control Accountability Plan, we could have decided not to do class size reduction, but we believe that, but that's something we did continue. At AVID, we have a pretty robust AVID program that we did. We have translation interpretive services. Campus security at the junior high that we did. You know that we have 5 TOSAs that have really been helped us out with restorative approaches, Common Core implementation. So that's an allocation we used last year and continue to use now. We piloted the program for effective access to college, formerly known as POSSE, but now PEAK, at La Cumbre and San Marcos High School, and it was 100% grant funded and site funded, and that's so we piloted that very successfully. Common Core professional learning. Counselors, I know we've had a lot of conversations about counselors. So counselors, that's not something that's new in our system. We didn't add counselors, but under the Local Control and Accountability Plan, we had the option to use the funds that were allocated towards those counselors to something else, and we chose to continue to use it in the counselors.
So that's not an that's not an increase in counselors. It's just
yes, it's not an increase, but we just maintain the status quo.
And those 3 are high school counselors?
Yes. Yes. Cultural proficiency, our initiative, we allocated some funds to that, and which we're still continuing to see that through this year. After school tutoring and library access, we allocated funds for that. Equal Opportunity Schools was an organization we contracted with to help us evaluate our placement criteria and our AP and honors courses at the high school. And we're implementing that very successfully, and you'll see some numbers in the near future about how that program worked. Extended learning for 7th through 9th grade math. Those were basically the support courses for our Common Core math. So we support, you graciously gave funds to support that. Student and family social emotional support in the K-6. Gardner Educators, the GATE program. Hanover Research, high school credit recovery, IB licenses. So if I skipped any there that you wanted to touch on, we can certainly go back. Yes.
For the counselor positions, where are they listed in the budget sheet for 2015-16? Are they? Or are they subsumed under a heading?
Let me see. And Mrs. Jate would actually help me out in this conversation here.
They're actually funded out of the general fund, and you don't see them because when Ben and I went through this this report, I missed putting it over there. So whatever Ben mentions, it's funded through either the LCAP, the sites, or other funding sources. So that one just didn't get put into your spreadsheet, but it will be corrected tomorrow.
Okay, so it wouldn't necessarily be subsumed under site allocations.
No, this is a general fund, site funded.
Okay.
General.
Yep. So I'm going to skip to the next slide. It's just a continuation of what we did in 14-15. We allocated funds to support the DLAC parent organization. We think it's a very powerful group for us. We hired a director of English learners and parent engagement. That was a very successful hire, but we'll talk about, you've seen some of the work that we have accomplished with just by having that position. The Expedition Academy is one the program that we supported out of Dos Pueblos High School. Illuminate Student Information System and support. We had instructional materials. iPad one-to-one. Maintenance, we allocated 4 FTEs for maintenance. We supported the Mobile Waterford preschool program. Music teacher supplies, outdoor science camp, professional learning community support.
Could you amplify on the outdoor science camp?
Yes, that is, in the past, sites fundraise to take students to go to that outdoor science camp. And we had a conversation with so it created a situation in which students that had the means, or schools that had the means to send students to science camp went, and the ones that didn't really struggled. So as a district, we decided to support all students by taking over that payment of that.
Thank you.
Professional learning community support, people services support, parent resource center. That was, we think that was been a very successful program this year, with a lot of information coming out of the Parent Resource Center to help our parents. Restorative approaches training, secondary program of choice, CTE, some CTE-RP programs that the district supported that we could have, because we didn't have to support those, but the district chose to continue to support the existing programs under those, under ROP and CTE. Security disaster prep, elementary science programs, teacher match. We supported tech coaches, integrators, and mentors. Testing for PSAT plan. That's a typo, not the ACT. The ACT is actually a, the plan is the preparation test for the ACT, so that's a typo there. We support the wellness chair and youth support services. So next set of items are what we will continue to do in 2015-16. As you can see there, the list is somewhat similar to what you have noticed. There wasn't much that we took out. Perhaps I'll just go over a few.
If I may, what the LCAP Parent Advisory Committee made it very clear at every single meeting that what they wanted more than anything was for us to continue doing what we promised we would do in the LCAP this year for next year. And that's why you do not see many of the things taken away.
Yes. So as you can see there, you won't be able to identify here unless you have a keen eye. So I will have to go to the next slide to say what we did, what we took out. But the list you see here is basically the same as what you saw and what we did this year, with an exception with a few, which I'll identify in a second. So maybe instead of reading through, just I'll let you guys read it and give you 2 seconds to ask any questions on that.
Well, you're saying that it's the same except for 3 items.
Yes, I'll go over that in a second here. Okay. So I'll continue on. You'll notice that we continue some of the same things. And then the next set of items is what did we discontinue from the previous years. So we eliminated the Illuminate Student Information System and support. Although we did not hire a Science TOSA, there was a budget line to hire Science TOSA last year, but we did discontinue that for this next year. Obviously, it's not done yet until you authorize it, but that is the plan for now.
So we didn't hire one last year?
We didn't hire one last year, mainly because when the decision was made, it was very difficult to identify a teacher that was interested in leaving the class. that late in the game. So, but during this conversation for this year's, that was one of the areas that that as a leadership team we identified to next.
Who will take on the role?
It's a very important role. As site administration will have to sit down together and figure out how we're going to do that. I mean, prior to us having TOSAs, the TOSA structure, the principals and assistant principals did the work of the TOSAs. It was tough on them, but that's probably the model we have to go back to.
Ms. Parker?
I guess we'll just address these things as we go along. And I was at the what has been the quarterly elementary science leadership meeting this most of today, actually.
Yes.
And over the past several years, it's been really impressive the work that's been done on science in the elementary grade levels.
Yes.
Science is a huge part of our strategic plan.
Yes.
And we have this huge transition to the next generation science standards that it's been wonderful to see elementary kind of gradually getting there. An enormous decision that needs to be made pretty much now on how we are transitioning to what the structure will look like for science in 6, 7, 8, and then our high school science teachers need to be exploring the new NGSS standards for them. And so I recognize that the LCAP has a limited amount of money in it, but I really feel that it is important that we not drop the ball on the 6 to 12 science TOSA. And I know that Mr. Harkey was essentially kind enough to step in and chuckle that as with all the other things that he was doing too. And so there was he was there to help with that this year when there wasn't anybody. I know from what we've heard from Bayside, from the team out of the Lawrence Hall of Science, that sometimes districts actually have to look outside their own districts for science TOSAs. But regardless, I know it was a difficult position. I think it's really important that we look for funding either in district or out of district, because I think it's going to be even harder for the secondary district to make this transition. And you know, if you don't have somebody that's dedicated to it, I'm really concerned that we will struggle, that we won't do it as well as we could have done. And there's just a lot of excitement around this, and it's so important for our students, and I just want to be sure that we're doing the best we can for them.
Good input. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Dr. Paz?
So I was going to ask the same kind of question, so I'm not going to ask that. But I do have another question in terms of trying to crosswalk this document and then this document.
Yes.
So one of the things you mentioned what we did in 2014-15 and what we're continuing in 2015-16.
Yes.
Security is mentioned as what we did in 2014-15. It's an item, and also campus security junior high, 2015-16 that we're going to do, and then the same item in 2015-16. And then when you look at the spreadsheet, we have an item called event security, which I'm not clear what that is.
Yes.
And then we have security system. I'm assuming that should be Goleta Valley Junior High. Maybe misspelled. And so I'm wondering if those are the same items, they encompass different items, or they don't match up.
They're different items. Event security is really our opportunity to secure our high school campuses during events. And Goleta Valley Junior High School is the allocation to provide campus supervision.
So my question would be then, did we have an allocation for funding? Are we going to have an allocation for funding in terms of security that's listed in here for 15-16? If not,
the rest of it's paid for out of the general fund.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
So I'm just trying to, if someone, again,
thank you for catching that. We need to make sure that what's on here is discussed public is actually the document I'm going to post on the website. So
correct.
Part of the issue is with the entire LCAP, and districts across the state are struggling with this, is that you have to make a choice. You can put in every single item in your budget, which we're being told not to do, and therefore then you just put in the things that are either partially or fully funded through the LCAP, former categorical funds, which then does not include everything that's being done in the district because so much of it is funded through the general fund. And
Then might I suggest that if we're going to put this out, and this is sort of the all-encompassing document, whether it's funded or not, or partially funded or not, that we somehow or another note here that it's not, or that it's partially funded or fully funded.
Okay.
Because my thing about it is, my concern is that we want to be as transparent as possible with the public, and someone picking up this document, looking at this document, saying, we want a crosswalk, they're not going to see all of it, and they're not even going to know how did we fund that. So
absolutely,
I think that would be really good.
Yes, I want to add something to Dr. Cash's point and your point is, as we went through the LCAP, the challenge here is to go. Do we go and identify everything we're doing? Essentially, everything's LCFF. Do you identify everything, or do you just identify things that you actually mentioned in the LCAP? So what I've done is, you'll notice there are some things in here that are not funded by the actual LCAP, but we mention it on the in the actual LCAP document. So that's a challenge.
The other confusing thing is that because we're required to report on how we're supporting English learner students living in poverty and foster youth, we don't support them just with LCAP funds. And so we're required to put in there all of the ways in which we support those three groups in particular. And in the final document, if you go back and look at last year's LCAP, it stated where it came from: Title I, Title II, General Fund, et cetera.
Yes.
Just so the public knows, what Dr. Cash or what Dr. Drade is going through is a very synthesized look at it. It's actually 115 pages of fine print. So if anybody wants to look at 115 pages, it's on the it's on the website.
In Spanish and English.
In Spanish and English, and but it's a very difficult document to understand.
Yes.
In fact, it's hard to understand. And
I just want to clarify in terms of this. I don't expect it all to be there, but when we have documents that are at this level, where it's like the 30,000-foot level, that at least we try to get as much as being on the same page as possible. That's all.
Got it. Got it.
Ms. Eielson?
Yes, I have some questions. First, can you explain a little bit the expansion of the Expedition Academy?
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. The Expedition Academy is a program that Dos Pueblos High School has ran successfully through Kelly Choi, the teacher of the Kelly Choi that heads it off. Last year, we supported it. It was originally supported with grant funding from the community. But we thought that was a great program and that we needed to take over at some point. So we used it as a pilot last year, and the data was so very successful with the idea that it was going to expand to San Marcos and Dos Pueblos. San Marcos and Santa Barbara High.
It's not the academy like you're traditionally thinking. It used to be called the Charger Academy, and it's essentially a group of students that start in grade 9 and as a cohort. It's not dissimilar to the same way in which Peak has been successful, putting a group of students together with the same group of teachers and providing support for them throughout their 4 years of high school.
Okay, I just hadn't heard that term, the expedition.
Well, I'll just be frank and tell you that when we talked to Mr. Behrens and Mr. Becchio, they didn't really want to have the Charger Academy at their two schools. So
why not?
Okay, and then I'm sort of a little, I see where, like, the GATE program, you give an exact number.
Yes.
And I don't see that happening anywhere else, and I wondered, is that because you took it off this sheet? And then in some of these, it's giving the the expense of the staff and not. And
okay, so maybe if I continue on, that'll make sense. I made some notes because I knew there would be some questions of is that a change or not a change? For example, let's look at cultural proficiency. Cultural proficiency, we are continuing to do it, but in a much more supported way. Last year we allocated 40,000. This year we're allocating 230. So in some of those areas I've kind of noted, so that way for sake of conversation I needed to, if I needed to address it that way.
Right, and is for the GATE program, is it coming completely out of the local control funding, as opposed to, is the cultural proficiency coming completely out of the general fund also?
Yes, the gate clubs coming completely out of LCAP.
Okay.
Yes.
2 or 3 things. I had the same sort of question mark on the science TOSA because earlier this year I heard from several science teachers that they didn't quite understand what was going on, and I talked to Dr. Cash about it, and then I went and met with Mr. Harkey, and he assured me that there's a process underway to get to the decision-making process. So I guess my question is, he said there was a process underway. Is somebody going to carry on that process, and is it something we're just going to be looking into?
Now, make no mistake that we're not. The idea was not to. It's not ideal not having a TOSA there, but the idea was never to drop the work of the TOSA would have done. If we don't have a TOSA, and this is not final by all means, it can still change. But let's say if we don't have a TOSA, that work will have to be held up by the administration. So if you remember, prior to us having the math and ELA TOSAs for about a year, the assistant principals of each school were the TOSAs. I think at that point they recognized that was a lot of
I'm wondering if they're going to recognize the same thing and be behind a year.
Yeah, ideally that's not the case, but I think in our conversations that wasn't rated as a high priority, with the notion, with the idea that somebody's going to have to do that work, and that's kind of like where we're headed with that.
Because that's a coordination. That's that's dealing with personalities. And what's Equal Opportunity Schools? We're dropping it.
Yes, Equal Opportunity Schools was a 1-year contract with that organization to help us identify students that have the ability to be in honors and AP classes that we somehow missed. And the way they worked is they came in and surveyed the students. They looked at our student graphics. They looked at data and they profiled all of our AP students in our system, and then identified other students that are not in AP classes that fit the profile of the AP students and honor students. So because of that, we have a list. Now we have a list of students at the 3 comprehensive high schools that somehow we missed that fit the profile that we're talking to. So what you'll see there is next year you'll probably see the enrollment data of each school drastically changing those honors and AP classes because of the work.
In fact, we're already seeing it. I think I shared with you the preliminary data for one of our high schools, and if I didn't, you'll see it this week. Yeah. And I think it's important that EOS, we believe we understand how we can take the algorithm that they created for us in identifying those students and do it ourselves. Though just yesterday I did receive an email message from the executive director reaching out to try to have a phone conference this week to look to extend our partnership and continue working with us. So I'm going to explore that and see what that's like.
Ms. Limon?
So I see we have an email. I don't know if you all have an email, but we have an email about Opportunity Education Board policies.
That's something on another item.
For later, okay,
yeah.
So that's not related to
not to this one.
Our Equal Opportunity Schools.
No,
all right.
Not this one.
So one of the questions I asked last year, and I have it again this year, is are there any of these programs that are specific to, that we're keeping in the LCAP for 2015-16 that are specific to a single school? And if so, I want to know why we're keeping them on the LCAP.
Specific to a single school?
To a single versus multiple schools.
Okay. All of our programs that we identified that way, for example, let's take not Charter, but Expedition Academy, for example. It was directly to support the Expedition Academy at Dos Pueblos with that notion that we were going to expand it at some point. So there isn't any if we identify a specific school that's doing something that's asking for funds from outside agencies, we would rather support that if we can, with the idea that it will expand. So we use those as pilots.
So the Dos Pueblos Engineering Academy support for elementary science is going to be working with our local elementaries,
Oh, yes.
all of the elementaries?
Well, yeah. Well, what we're going to do is we're going to train a teacher in really engineering practices, project-based learning, with the idea that that teacher then would become our local expert for our elementary schools, not only at the end of the year, but throughout the year, sharing his experiences with his colleagues in all of our K-6 schools.
Okay, and so that knowledge will somehow be incorporated into kind of our greater practices for the district.
Absolutely.
This isn't about Dos Pueblos, it's about improving our engineering and science practices at our elementary schools.
Okay, and I know this is what happens when you have a list of the things that you're discontinue. The one we haven't asked about is Illuminate, and I know that we've had conversations in our high school exit requirement committee about replacing it with something else. So the idea that there is going to be, I want to be clear, credit recovery, online credit recovery isn't disappearing. That's correct, right?
It's not.
Okay, and so it's just being replaced with something else.
Yeah, so Illuminate information system will be replaced with Aries. So we're going back to Aries.
We're still using Illuminate for our DNA, though.
Oh, wait, why was I thinking online credit recovery?
You're thinking of Odyssey.
Odyssey.
Sorry,
Yeah.
sorry. I'm totally off. Sorry, ignore that one. And how should we as board members think about this? I mean, you're essentially bringing a full plate to us. So if we did have, I mean, Ms. Parker.
Can you go to the next slide?
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Okay.
Look, wahoo, here's what we're adding.
Yeah. So maybe I should go over this list because it's kind of critical. So that'll
go over that.
Explain some things. So we went through where we eliminated, and we had to do the elimination because we added a bunch of other stuff. So this is a list of what we've added, and I think I'll have to spend more time on this one because it's stuff that is probably new to you. Blast is a program that we identified in which it uses students. It's a nationally recognized program that uses students that often struggle in math, that are in higher grade levels, that come back and support and tutor students that are younger. So it's a program that we want to incorporate with Dos Pueblos High School and La Cuesta. They volunteered to take that on as a pilot this year. Like I said, it goes back to those two because they volunteered. It could have easily went to Santa Barbara High or San Marcos, but those two are the ones that said they wanted to try that in their system. So that's a pilot that we're going to use. Expansion of the program for effective access to college, PEAK, at San Marcos and La Cumbre, Santa Barbara Junior High and Santa Barbara High School. If you're wondering why we listed San Marcos and La Cumbre as an expansion, it's because in the past we only identified a limited amount of students to go through the program. This time around, they're going to take any student that has the characteristics of our PEAK students. So it's not subject to a specific number. So they're going to take all students. So in that sense, it's an expansion because they're going to take more students than they've had in the past. We are taking the program to Santa Barbara Junior High and Santa Barbara High School, and they've already had conversations around that, and they'll be ready to roll next year. The PEAK and Community of Schools Coordinator, we allocated a funding to support one of our staff members that's already coordinating those programs. We need to have skin in the game. You would say that. Right now, that coordinator position is funded by community members through grants, and the whole idea of those funders is the reason why those funders are funding this initiative is because they had, with the understanding that at some point we would take over if we actually believed in it. So I think we need to really put forth a gesture that says we are committed to this program and that we will put some skin in the game, for lack of a better word.
Well, and on the spreadsheet it says 115,000. Is that the number that would go to this category?
Yes. It's not the total amount, it's a percentage.
75%?
Yes.
Of that position.
Of
that's
that
correct.
position.
Of that position,
Right.
yes.
Yeah, we've doubled that person's work.
Yes. Construction materials for wood shop. So we wanted to really ensure that when schools receive funding, that supporting the wood shops were not a second-hand thing. Sometimes when you allocate funds to schools, a lot of people would, because of the nature of accountability and all that, funds will strictly go to science, math, and the core areas. As a result, sometimes wood shops and CTE courses are not supported as much. So we wanted to make sure that we actually identified funds to support those programs.
And that's $30,000?
Yes. That would be split between the junior highs and the high schools. Increase in funding for cultural proficiency initiatives. There's a lot of work yet to be done in that area. We're continuing to work, but we're increasing the allocation towards that work. I think we're positioned to really have some robust conversations with sites, students, and parents, and so those funds will go towards that work.
And last year that was 40,000?
40,000, yes.
And we're jumping to 230,000?
Yes. And last year was more or less a building of allies, I would say. A building of people that understand their work, that can support the work on the specific sites. Right now we are positioned, right now we're in a situation in which we have over 250 staff members that have been trained in the work of cultural proficiency and have in the whole area of institutional barriers. So right now we want to take the understanding and really start doing some work on the sites, and it's going to have to take more funds to support that work.
What that is the IEE attendance for many staff members. It is talking in class, which we're going to be doing at all of our junior highs and high schools next year. It is a parent leadership development training throughout the year. It is student leadership during the summer. And it is significant consulting and work in the development of the cultural proficiency rubric, which Dr. Dradi and team are working on. And then it will be additionally help in working through our instructional materials and initiatives through that culturally proficient lens.
This past year, we had a contract with Just Communities, and then it was, I think, revised, but a great part of it was grants and donations.
Yes.
Are those still part of it, or are we taking on 100% of the funding?
We're not taking 100%, but we needed to show the funders that this is something that we support. The previous years, they did most of the funding.
When we limit ourselves to fundraising, we limit ourselves to the opportunity. We couldn't send as many people as wanted to go or needed to go to IEE because we limited ourselves to fundraising.
I guess my question is, are we still going to, is this the sum total that goes in, or is there still some percentage that?
I've sent to you our 3-year equity plan. If you look at that, you'll see what portion will be fundraised and what portion is proposed to be spent by the district over the next 3 years.
Okay, so to continue on, the expansion of the Expedition Academy to San Marcos High School and Santa Barbara High School. I think we discussed a little bit of that already. Extended time for math support in the summertime. This is basically students that are going into 10th grade that our sites feel that need more support to be able to handle the Math 2 that's coming in, that they'll be taking. So it's specific to those specific areas of need. So it's not a general summer school approach, but it's just more or less students that we feel need that support to be successful in the Math 2 as they transition from Math 1 to Math 2. As I mentioned in previous meetings, I mentioned that in the past, we would have just had those students repeat the previous course that they weren't successful in, with the idea somehow that they would continue to grow. But But we were under those conditions because the assessment, those students would have been assessed would have been in that class, that particular level. That no longer exists. These students will be assessed with math and pre-calculus knowledge. So somehow we got to get the students there.
Real quick clarification question.
Yes.
That is different than the Bridge program that was recently introduced to us. Okay.
Yes.
Thanks.
Yes.
And the Bridge program is, I don't see it here, so it's general fund?
Yeah, that's,
No, that's
grant funded.
funding.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
Eventually,
We
eventually
should
it
be
might
paying for it. Eventually we will.
So specific funding for library books, that's just as we allocated funds for construction, we wanted to ensure that the library funding went strictly towards library books. It's one of those areas in which sometimes funding flows into different areas, and so we wanted to secure the funding for library books because it's such an important part of the Common Core implementation and what our students are exposed to out there in terms of literature. We allocated funds to hire 2 elementary librarians. I think you heard about this plan last time already, so I'm not going to expand on that. An additional 3 FTEs for maintenance the previous year.
Can we stop at the librarians?
Yes.
So you're not voting on it tonight. It's a public meeting, but it would be, Margaret Christensen's given me the devil look for me to come to her at the end of June and say, find 2 elementary librarians, please. Is that an item that you are comfortable with, confident in, that that's an important thing that we should be looking at? Any comments or potential direction would be helpful?
It's $180,000.
Well, I mean, I feel like we discussed it when we were talking a little bit about the library, when we had the secondary plan in front of us. I mean, I really defer to principal input on this in terms of, I mean, obviously I think that having elementary librarians is important. The number of elementary librarians is something that I would really expect staff to give us feedback on.
Ms. Adelson?
Up to now, or in recent history, it's been like library technicians, right? All
That's
under
correct.
one umbrella of one, no?
No, there has not been an elementary librarian since 2010-11.
Okay. Okay, what about that model, continuing that model where there would be, like Nancy Tobin, was that when she?
She really was, her role was vastly different than what our elementary libraries need.
So how is it different?
She was more of an orderer and placer of orders for materials as opposed to someone that would provide help, instruction for students, and that's really the expository reading that's required by the Common Core, and understanding databases and, you know, programs.
So would this still be a situation where you'd have 2 librarians overseeing sites where there was tech
Yes.
librarians?
Yeah, there will still be techs at
Okay.
each elementary, and they will be the one to oversee.
Yep.
And you feel 2 is the right number?
Well, I mean, the right number is probably 10.
Okay. So.
But, you know, I mean, the right number would be 1 counselor per 10 students at a high school and a junior high as well. But
2 could cover
I think
what
it's
would
a
be
good
needed.
start. If you'll recall the conversation, it was a kind of a start towards moving toward more elementary librarians.
And our secondary librarians helped come up with this formula.
Yeah, they were the
Yeah,
ones that
so-
recommended the 2 elementary librarians, and they have a very specific idea in mind.
Ms. Limon?
And back to Ms. Parker's comment, have we received some input? I know we received it from the librarians, but from the site leaders, as that's being something that's,
Well, yes, we
Are-
did
Yes.
receive input from the site leaders.
and that is, oh,
I shared
Yes.
that with you.
okay.
So everything you see here, we had a conversation with the principals with already. So this is, I know some of them are here, but there isn't any additional items that we didn't discuss with them already. So we receive feedback on all these items.
So if we were to have these 2 librarians, and they would be roving, or they'd be in a certain place? What would that structure look like?
They will be, I imagine they'll be roving. Obviously, they'll be working with the techs. It's somewhat like how our nurses work in our system. We have nursing techs at the elementary schools, and then you have one nurse to every X amount of schools. We'll work with them.
You know, I have a more general question than typical. You know, 2 elementary librarians, 180,000, okay. But I have no idea when you say we're going to add all these things to 2015-16, where's the money coming from? I would need to know, because if all of a sudden we say, okay, let's go priority-wise, from top to bottom, where does 180,000 in librarians fit into the total priority?
There's nothing in what we've given you that does not fit within our anticipated allocation for 15-16. So this isn't, we're not asking you to prioritize anything. We're presenting what fits within the budget based upon the input that we've received.
And if you look on the column, the gray column, the far right column.
In this document.
On that document, that is the LCAP funding. When we do our calculator, it tells us how much we need to put into the supplemental and concentration grant, and that's the number. And we don't present anything to you until we have it balanced. So if you look at the bottom, it tells you that the amount allocated, I can't speak in, the amount allocated is 5.4 million, and that's what we tie to. The allocation is 5.289, and then with it indirect, it comes to 5.4, which is our total allocation for our supplemental grant for this year.
That's all new money, or is that?
That's all new money. That's not all of our new money, but it's a large portion of our new money.
Thank you.
I don't like to call it new money because it's just kind of reimbursement from 2000.
It's not new money, yeah, really.
Well, I guess, is it new money that is going to be with us for a while? Yes. Or do we have other options to spend it, like our reserves or anything like that?
You mean, would the money that items here we could use for our reserve?
I just asked a question, yeah.
Absolutely, we could, whatever you guys tell us.
Yeah, we could do nothing, then we could put it all in reserve.
And so I guess my overall question is, over and above this, is there money to go into the reserves? Are we spending every dollar that we're entitled to on new programs?
No, 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 no.
Well, I think the question you're asking is if we're going to have any reserves above and beyond working towards our 10%. Is that what you, yes.
Operative words.
We will let you know on adopted budget, but because we have not developed our complete budget, we're going by certain guidelines in the calculator at this point. But I would say there's no way that we're going. I will hope that we are not going to be into our reserves at all at the end of the adopted budget when we adopt it.
When you say into our reserves?
Meaning deficit spending. I'm hoping
well, we
not.
Hope not. I mean,
yeah, exactly.
I mean, that's part of this decision making. We have $5 million on the table here.
Yeah, but this is supplemental.
This is money is allocated to support English learner students, students living in poverty, and foster youth, and it needs to be spent in those areas.
But that just asked the question, could we put some in reserve? And the answer was yes, we could.
I think we misunderstood
your question.
Okay, I said this 5.4, and you commented it could all go there. We could do nothing, but so I'm missing something.
So this is a supplement. This is the amount on our calculator that says this is your supplemental amount. This is what you need to spend on those 3 targeted areas. Okay. So this is what the plan. This is what our proposed plan is.
And I just want clarification because we use the word new, and I'm scared of that
it's not new money.
Right. And I'm scared of that being reported in the paper as all of a sudden we got new $5 million. But this is just money that used to come to us as categorical that we now have a different way of thinking of. This isn't magical money that's coming down, that's new, that we haven't had a use for in the past.
Remember, we were deficited 22%. They're working to get us back to 2007-8 funding.
So part of it represents that gap funding, which is part of the local control funding formula.
Which is going towards our target of 2007.
And I just want to be clear, because I think when we say new money, people might think that it's really new and coming from nowhere, and there was not ever a use.
Well, it is new money. I mean, it's money that we didn't have before, and
But not the full 5 million, no.
No,
I mean-
it's money that was allocated to specific programs that could only be spent in those programs for which you had almost no control or decision-making.
Ms. Parker?
I want to be respectful of the time because I know that we've been talking about this for almost an hour at this point. And I know, you probably don't want to go through these things item line by line. I just want to jump ahead to the elementary music teachers piece and just ask a quick question on that because it looks like it's over $500,000 that's being put into the LCAP.
Yes.
Is that all of the music teachers or is that just some of them?
Meg, is that all of it? Is that all?
All the music teachers that were in the parcel tax, we moved into the LCAP. Then what we did is we're going to allow the sites to use the parcel tax money that we just relieved it of to buy whatever technology, such items that they choose to.
In accordance with the parcel tax vote.
Exactly.
Yes, absolutely, which includes technology.
Yeah, I guess my only question on that is the parcel tax money doesn't actually end until, the last money will come into the district in 2017, correct?
That's correct.
Yes.
And although I know that we talked about VAPA and special projects, that director as being part of the LCAP, given what it's targeted to, in some ways I question whether the LCAP is the appropriate location for the elementary music teachers. Given that I don't see them as being really targeted in that way. Maybe it's partial funding through the LCAP, but for them to be completely funded through the LCAP when they serve all of our students, I just question whether it should be, at least, and maybe it's, I know that it can be partially funded by the LCAP as opposed to 100% funded by the LCAP.
And you are correct, because this is not 100% of them. We're already either 2.8 or 3.0 elementary music teachers that were already funded through the general fund. These are only the positions that had been supplemented by the parcel tax.
I just want to be careful about that because we obviously have to be able to justify that to the state. And when I'm looking in the document, I don't see that as really justifying it in the way so many of the other things do in terms of what they're looking at and measurements for English learners, for foster youth, that kind of thing.
Yes.
And so that's something that I want to be careful of.
And in one of the areas in the LCAP, it says that a school district could make a local decision on a specific area they want to focus in on. So we selected science and performing arts as one of those areas. So that's how we were able to include that as a part of this, the funding.
Dr. Paz?
A similar question with the preschool coordinator. Do we not receive any funding right now currently from state preschool funding for that position, or is this in addition to that, or what are we talking about in terms of that position?
So this is a part of we usually receive funding for that. I think in part of our discussions we recognize that we need to support that program more. So those resources that used to go to cover that was identified. The coordinator position can go to other areas. So we'll pour more money into preschool.
Okay.
You're going to be seeing soon a strategic plan for early childhood education that will help clarify that.
And then the second question I had was a little more clarification or more information on Naviance Secondary, only 7th through 12th grade?
Yes. The Naviance system, you heard a lot about the students talk about counselor support. You also heard about accountability on whether our counselors are meeting with parents. So Naviance is a system that's already in our system. I think Dos Pueblos High School and Santa Barbara High use it. But it's basically a technology tool that resembles the counselors' what do you call those counselors? File, the counselor's file. But it's electronic, so students can do. They can have conversation with counselors. So the idea is that this is a tool that parents can engage with counselors, students can engage with counselors, not only physically but electronically. And our goal is to incorporated to 7th through 12th. And with the whole idea of having the 10-year plan move to the elementary, and that'll be tied into Naviance. So we need a system that'll house the work that the counselors are doing, and that transparent.
There is a K-6 component or a 4-6 component that, you know, I look at our elementary principals, and I was with one today, and they work a lot harder than our junior high and high school principals. And we didn't want to ask them to also have to figure out how to do Naviance yet. We've had a successful pilot at DP, and I think it's Santa Barbara Junior. Is it Santa Barbara High School?
Santa Barbara High.
You're doing it, John? And I can tell you, as a parent, Claremont High School had it. It was an incredibly invaluable tool. So, have either board member with kids, have you used it at Santa Barbara High School?
Yeah. And as the kids were doing the freshman seminar plan, I saw it go by. I had a question about the SHMOOP. Is that how you say it?
Yes.
So is that open to all students, or will that be?
That is open to all students.
Okay.
Yeah. It's our SAT test prep system, ACT,
Ms. Parker?
AP.
I'm sure other board members will have questions on some of these specific ones, but you know, there are a couple of things. What we can't know, I know this is the last sheet of your handout, but we can't know everything that everybody has requested and thought should be, so we don't know what we don't know. What we do know is that there were two things that we don't see. One, well, three things. One was the science TOSA, because you spelled that out as something that came out. Another is we just had a whole community of students and parents talk to us about increasing the number of counselors.
Yes.
And that's not currently in the LCAP.
Yes.
And then the third thing was that we had at our last meeting, we had some discussion about the loss of the counseling grant for the elementary schools. And so I think that as we move forward to, because we have one more public hearing and then
adoption.
So we have a chance for more input and more thought around those things.
Well, the counseling component remains.
For the elementary?
K-6, yes.
But the grant is going away. So what we had, what the letters that we got, because we got emails around this, and that was about the fact that it might be transitioning from, and we had Family Service Agency here to talk about it as well, the possibility of it transitioning from a professional program to a, essentially an internship program.
Yeah.
And I know that that's something that the elementary principals care about. So that's
absolutely
just something that I want to be sure is on our radar as we make final decisions about
absolutely. I mean, that's an important piece that the elementaries advocated for. So any change there, you know, we have to get the blessing of the elementary principals on that first before we just.
Yeah, the amount of money that we intend to spend remains exactly the same, and we intend to work with the same community agencies.
Yeah. As far as counselors, what I'd like to see, and I was going to ask for it at the end of the meeting, is, I don't know what year it was, 2009, 2010, we had huge discussions on the ratio of counselors. I'd like to see an update of that as to how many counselors we actually have and what is the counselor to student ratio.
I think we have that data. We could tell you right now if you wanted.
No, I think, well, I'd like to see it in writing.
Yeah.
And maybe how many are bilingual.
I can tell you that as well.
Yeah. Good. Okay. Ms. Limon?
I just have a general question about next steps. In light of some of the comments, I mean, this is already being presented to us, capping us out at the maximum of the supplemental grant. And so there's two things that come to mind. As I've gone line by line through this budget, I realize there's some that I will be asking you about because I don't know how they specifically addressed some of the needs of first generation, low income, EL, and foster. It just seems that they are
general.
General, and so I am.
Yes, well, and we're allowed by law to spend it school-wide. if a school has 45% or more of an English learner population economically disadvantaged. And district-wide, we can as well.
Yeah.
But actually, I will be, before we turn it over to the County Office of Education, that what you described is actually something that they want to see. So like last year, there was a page we include with the LCAP that actually described how we're supporting the different subgroups that we're supposed to support in the LCAP. So I will be going through that journey of taking some of this information and specifically identifying how it's supporting the students.
And I'd love to see that, because while I think that everything that is on here is meaningful and it will impact good student learning, I counted 22 things that I think could go either direction, depending how they're used. So how should we as board members think about this as far as the next steps? And if we did want to support, I'm not saying we do because we haven't had that conversation, but something that is not on this list, how do we think about this?
You tell us.
Okay, well, I personally would like to have a conversation about the counseling. I'd like to see the numbers first. I think it's something that comes to us on a regular basis, and so I think I would like to see more there.
Okay.
And I'd be glad to give you the numbers, but I also want to let board members know that conversation will require some very sensitive discussion.
Okay. Any more general questions, or have we outlived the topic? I mean, this is a lot of money, and it's a lot of programs, and I mean, this is the kind of discussion that we're here for. You know, that's our job.
Yes.
And I think it's very, very beneficial. Ms. Parker?
I just want to say, you know, in the larger budget, it's actually not that much money. And so I feel like it's so important that we tie this limited amount of money directly to the students that are supposed to be targeted to it, and that we be careful, as Ms. Limon said, you know, not to overgeneralize this, that this is about specific resources to students with specific needs.
Thank you. Okay, any other comments, Dr. Cash or
None.
Dr. Roddy? Okay.
Thank you.
Did we have any public comment? No, okay. Let's go back to the,
I want to thank all the principals for being here. I asked them to come, some couldn't. I thought it would be important for them to hear directly your discussion regarding draft 1 of the LCAP.
Yeah, you know, I need to open that meeting and close it at the same time, okay? Okay, thank you. Then you guys can go home and do your homework. Action items. G1, Board Action, Student Discipline, case number 2014-15-01. Do I have a motion?
In case 2014-15-01, I move that we revoke the suspended expulsion and move forward with the 1 school year expulsion.
I'll second it.
Discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. B, G2, case 2014-15-36.
In case 2014-15-36, I move that we approve the stipulated agreement for an expulsion with suspended enforcement.
I'll second it.
Discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried unanimously. Case number 2014-15-31, G3.
I'll move to approve the request for a postponement of the administrative hearing panel.
I'll second it.
Discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried unanimously. We'll go to G4, Resolution for Reduction in Force for Certificated Employees, Resolution 2014-15-35.
Dr. Christensen is here.
Good evening. The administration is requesting that the board adopt resolution number 2014-15-35 to reduce the FTE of the two teachers on the attachment by 30 minutes each per day.
Do I have a motion?
I move to approve the resolution for reduction in force for certificated employees, resolution number 2014-15-35.
I'll second it.
Discussion? Just happy to see that wonderful low number.
Yes.
It's like the past, it's much better. Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried unanimously. G5, approval of Resolution 2014/15-36, designating the week of May 17th to 23rd, 2015 as Classified School Employees Week in the Santa Barbara Unified School District.
The administration is pleased to recommend that the board approves Resolution 2014/15-36, designating May 17th through the 23rd, 2015 as Classified School Employee Week in the Santa Barbara Unified School District.
Would you read it to us, please?
I'd be happy to. Resolution 2014-15-36, recognizing May 17th through 23rd, 2015 as Classified School Employees Week. Recitals. Whereas classified professionals provide valuable services to the schools and students of the Santa Barbara Unified School District, and whereas classified professionals contribute to the establishment and promotion of a positive instructional environment, and whereas classified professionals serve a vital role in providing for the welfare and safety of Santa Barbara Unified School District students, and whereas classified professionals employed by the Santa Barbara Unified School District strive for excellence in all areas relative to the educational community. Therefore, be it resolved that the Santa Barbara Unified School District hereby recognizes and wishes to honor the contribution of the classified professionals to quality education in the state of California and in the Santa Barbara Unified School District, and declares the week of May 17th through the 23rd, 2015 as Classified School Employees Week in the Santa Barbara Unified School District.
Thank you. Do you have a motion?
I would like to make a motion as a former classified employee for a different educational institution to go ahead and approve this.
I would actually like to second it because I actually was a classified employee in this district.
Any discussion? Just want to thank all of our employees, the certified people that run the schools. I mean, without them, we probably wouldn't have schools. So, all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried. And thank you, those of you who are here. G6, approval of Insurance Committee recommendations for 2015-16 health benefit plans.
I'm going to turn this over to Brian Tangway, who was responsible for organizing and running an outstanding insurance committee this past year, and he will be assisted by Meg Jeté as necessary. Brian?
Thank you, Dr. Christensen. Well, we had a very harmonious insurance committee this year. Typically, we fight pretty vigorously because it's always very contentious because we're always talking about money and lots of money and who's going to pay it. So, but this year, we didn't fight so much. And the reason is because we have good news for a change on the health front, and I can't tell you how excited I am to be here and not be lamenting the fact that we're going to see a double-digit increase, because this year our overall percentage increase for the Santa Barbara Unified School District plans is 3%, which is absolutely incredible. Nationwide, the trend in medical insurance costs is anywhere from 6 to 12%. The renewal range for Santa Barbara County SISC members is 2 to 10. But across the state, by being part of the SISC pool, you can see that we benefited. The overall increase was only 2.8%. So that's extremely good news. More good news. So dental and vision plans, we got a rate pass, so everything remains status quo, no increase in cost. And the committee, and this is really the reason we didn't have any knockdown, drag-out fights, is that we are unanimously recommending that all medical plan offerings remain the same. We have a good mix. Employees seem to be happy with them for the most part, and so we are suggesting no change. This is the impact of the rate increases. You can see the different plans we offer, the number of subscribers in each plan, and the different increases. Fiscal impact, now this is going to make Meg groan because it always does, but that's okay. it's still a big pot of money. It's $446,000 more than we paid last year, but again, it's not 10%, 9%, 12%, or even 23% like we've seen in the past. So we have to keep that in perspective. Our total annual premium with employer and employee contributions is a whopping $15.2 million. Health insurance is still expensive.
And that 446, that's also employer-employee contributions?
Yes. Yes.
And we're basically 1% and employees are 2%.
Right, Meg? Yep. So, summary, one of the lowest overall renewals in years, and really what this means is the work that we did last year to move away from the composite rates and move to tiered rates, employee, employee plus 1, employee plus 2, and to make the decision, even though it wasn't necessarily popular, to eliminate the HMO plan. That is what paid off this year in the lower renewal. So we're very pleased. We think it really couldn't be better unless it was zero. Any questions?
Any motion? Would you have a question, Dr. Paz?
No, I'm just excited that we don't have the double digits that we have, and I think it's great. It's a good positive sign. Hopefully it's a trend, but we'll see.
We'll see.
Yeah.
Motion?
I'll move to approve the Insurance Committee's recommendations for the 15-16 health benefits plan. And I have to tell you, I wish that this were true of my own health care plans that affect my family. And it's not. Good work. Thank you.
Thank you.
Really appreciative.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried, and thank you very much for the good news.
Thank you very much.
G7, approval of changes and additions to the approved pesticide list.
Would ask David Hetyoung to come forward.
Thank you, Dr. Cash, members of the board. I'm asking for some additions to the pesticide list, and I'm also going to ask you tonight to amend the list that you've been provided by removing one of the pesticides. So I'll talk about that first. As part of the agenda item on our, Todd, if you can go to the proposed new list. Right. On our new proposed list, we have our PCQ pelleted rodent bait, which is basically, we're asking you to reapprove that because the EPA registration number had changed and the name had changed, but the active ingredient and everything else remained the same. I'm going to ask that this be removed from the list. We had our IPM meeting. In our IPM meeting, we meet with staff, classified representative, Nancy Weiss from Food Service, our consultant from Lens Pest Control, and we're always searching for the least toxic way to do things when we have to use a pesticide. And remember, a pesticide is anything from rosemary oil up to all insecticides and all herbicides. They're all classified as pesticides. We've been pretty successful in controlling our squirrels with our giant destroyers, and it's a much lower level of pesticide. And we feel that our use of diphacinine would be greatly reduced, and so we'll ask that it be taken off the list, and if we ever need to use it, we'd come back for your approval and then notify everybody as such. The things we're asking to add are at the bottom 5, Roundup Quick Pro, and then 4 pesticides that contain indoxacarb. Let me talk about those 4 first. This was one of the least toxic ingredients that we could find in controlling insects. With the drought, we've had a great increase of ants. We've had some in this building that have been a past issue, and this was the pesticide that we used on those, and they have not come back yet, I'm happy to say. Also, cockroaches. We're having a greater infestation of cockroaches, and as the water supplies dry up elsewhere, they start looking for water, coming in, looking for food. The gel, if you place the gel, this gel, in a crack or crevice, it's exempt from even reporting. It's considered to be such a low risk, low toxicity. Roundup Quick Pro, we found that in our pilot program to remove turf from our schools and put in drought-tolerant landscaping, we had 2 pilot programs, one at Cleveland, which was pretty successful, and one at La Colina Junior High, which was pretty unsuccessful. And it was killing off the turf so it doesn't come back whenever it is exposed to water. At Cleveland, we had a shaded area with 3 large trees where we always had kind of turf, kind of mud. We were pretty successful in removing that and having it not come back because the roots weren't deep in the ground. At La Colina, the roots are deep in the ground, and if you go look at what we tried to do there with covering the area, killing the grass, removing the grass, unless you want to dig down 2 feet and remove all of the roots, it's going to come back after you've spent all this money and it looks kind of ugly. So I would ask that on Roundup Quick Pro, our only intent is to use it when we are removing turf and replacing it with drought-tolerant landscaping. We don't plan to go back to the old days of using it for weed control along fences and other things. That's not the intent of adding this to the list. I did contact some other school districts. I got replies from 2 school districts. Goleta Union is not removing any turf at this time from their schools, and they are not using Roundup Quick Pro. Carpinteria does have it on their approved pesticide list. And Roundup Quick Pro is a formulation of Roundup that is the least toxic of the Roundup group. For a while, Roundup was toxic enough where it was on the prohibited pesticide list. It's been removed from the prohibited pesticide list, and Roundup Quick Pro was the least toxic of the Roundup varieties. These are recommendations we've received from our pest management control consultant and our grounds crews, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Questions? Ms. Parker?
On the Roundup, once we put it on the approved pesticide list, how do you guarantee that it is only used the way you've told us tonight that it be used?
I could put an asterisk on there and put only for use in areas where turf is being removed and other landscaping being installed. I'd be glad to put that right on the list.
All right, well, I think that I would be willing to approve that with that amendment.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Eliminating the PCQ pellet rodent bait and adding the disclaimer that it's only used under very certain conditions, and you can outline what that is.
That's the Roundup. The
Roundup. That's for the Roundup, yes.
Right.
Okay. Second? Second. Discussion? Ms. Limon?
So thank you for making that motion, because actually that was one of my concerns. I had kind of Googled some of these, and you Google these words and you're like, oh, look at this. So I'm glad that that's going to be noted. How do we, is this information accessible to parents and the public? Is there a notice that goes out? How do we ensure that this doesn't catch anyone off guard, and that?
Every year in our parents' rights packet or back to school packet, the pesticide list and a paragraph similar to what was in the agenda item is provided to all parents. And they are asked to respond if they would like to be notified in advance of any of these pesticides being applied. They let the school know. And then whenever we plan on using one of these pesticides, we notify all the parents that are on that list. If we use anything that's not on this list, I come to the board for approval and we notify every parent. So every parent gets to read the list, and if they wish, they can check the box. And we're right now reviewing the Healthy Schools Act of 2000 to see if an email notification is legal, and if it is, we'll probably ask the parents their preferred method of notification, email or U.S. mail, when we send that out. But this time of the year is usually when Mitch Terrena's office contacts me and says, you know, we're starting to put our paperwork together for the fall, or are there any changes? And so timely that we had our IPM committee meeting and then bringing this forward to the board. So every parent will receive this information in their packet for enrollment in the fall, or coming back to school in the fall.
Thank you.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
G8, discussion approval of agreement for Santa Barbara Junior High School with 2Teach LLC.
Dr. Drotti.
Okay, differentiation instruction has been initiated at Santa Barbara Unified School District over the past 2 years. Through differentiation instruction, students have equal access to the core curriculum and opportunity to not only meet but exceed the grade level standards. This agreement is solely for Santa Barbara Junior High School under the request of Mr. Principal Lito Garcia. I have Mr. Garcia here to answer any questions that you may have. So.
Just here to answer any questions that you may have.
Ms. Parker?
I guess, first of all, I totally support this. I know, obviously, the district's been bringing in Sandra Kaplan to do differentiated instruction, and I'm not sure if your staff had access to that or were able to do it or not. I think that there's tremendous value in bringing in PD to a particular school. And she's done, you know, with the other work that she's done with our district, it's Wendy Morawski. She's just terrific, and I think she would likely do a great job in this particular context as well. My only question is really, it looks like it's coming from Santa Barbara Junior High Title I funds. Is that correct?
We will be looking at all of our funds, Title I being one of the areas that we will be accessing.
Because my question, I just want to be sure we're not setting any sort of precedent here, because normally this is essentially, you know, if it's site funds, you'd be talking about it with your site council. Correct. And then contracts come to us if they're over 10,000, but they just come through on a consent. And I just want to, I wasn't sure why we needed to see this in particular, or if there was just a, I just want to be sure.
I don't have the answer to that question.
I just want to be sure that we're not starting this thing where we need to approve what a site council is going to be looking at. This is for the 15-16 school year?
Correct.
So we haven't seen your 15-16 site plan, obviously.
Right.
Just your 14-15 one.
Right.
And is this something that you see as a new need?
It's definitely a need to have differentiated instruction and to be able to provide the time for my staff. So we are looking at having Dr. Wendy Morawski attend our PD prior to school starting, and then through the dates that are listed in the contract, establish time for her to meet with specific PLCs and also do one-on-one coaching with teachers.
Well, then I guess this is maybe a question more for Dr. Drotti or for Dr. Cash, and that is, I'm wondering if we're kind of circumventing the site council process by pre-approving this. But is it okay for us to pre-approve this and then have him go back?
Yeah, so the only reason we brought this up is, you know, we have an understanding that if we're going to spend funds over 10,000, then we bring it to the board.
Okay.
And obviously, this is way more than 10,000.
We'd be happy to put all of these on consent.
Great. Well, in this case,
we'll do so.
Yeah, I'll move to approve the agreement for Santa Barbara Junior High School with 2Teach LLC, obviously with the understanding that your site council approves that as well.
Correct.
Second. Second by Dr. Paz. Under question, this year we have a $100,000 contract with Dr. Morawski.
Yes.
Are we going forward with that next year?
We're still in discussion on that. I think Santa Barbara Junior High had experience with Wendy Morawski, and the teachers wanted more. So,
my belief is that we will continue to contract with Dr. Morawski. What that will look like is undetermined.
And so this request would be over and above that, and they would.
Yeah, this is specific for Santa Barbara Junior High School.
Yes.
And
it's when she's here, it's a scramble to try to get her attention. So Santa Barbara Junior High basically says we want to solidify a time.
Okay.
Here.
All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you.
Right, thank you.
G9, for the approval of Compass Learning, Inc. Math and Reading Software Program.
Helen Rodriguez is here. This is part of the special ed summer school program that you were informed about at our last board meeting.
Good evening, Board President Herron and board members and Cabinet, Dr. Cash. As Dr. Cash mentioned in his report earlier this evening, the district plans to provide summer intervention program for kindergarten through 6th grade general education students and students with a mild to moderate disability. The district will pilot a Compass Learning software called the PathBlazer Learning Acceleration software. This software provides teachers with the tools they need to accelerate struggling elementary and middle school learners up to grade level proficiency in math and reading. The software prescribes an individualized acceleration plan that is Common Core and state standards aligned content, making effective reading and math intervention easier. One assessment partner that Compass Learning has established is Renaissance Star, which is a computer-adapted assessment. This allows immediate assessment data for each student, making it possible for personalized instruction to meet each student's needs. Our district currently has STAR licenses in reading and math. Compass Learning takes the STAR data and creates an essential teaching tool leveraging diagnostics, targeted instruction, and ongoing progress monitoring for personalized learning.
Questions? Ms. Parker?
Have you piloted this at all? Is this?
This will be piloted this summer.
Okay, so this is kind of a pilot?
Yes. At 4 elementary schools.
At 4 elementary schools, okay. And what was the process? Did you have a committee on this, or what happened?
No, there wasn't a committee. There wasn't time for a committee. In fact, this was an opportunity. We've never had an intervention program for our struggling readers. We took the concept from our speech. In fact, it went very well with our speech intervention class, where the speech therapists have brought down their caseloads and also prevented students from having to come into special ed by giving them the tools. So this is part of our vision of moving forward, and we wanted to expand this. We usually have extended school year, which is not summer school, but we didn't have a program for our mild to moderate students. The extended school year program is not summer school, but it's for those students who would probably fall back, and it's IEP driven. This intervention program is not IEP driven, and so our intention is to accelerate those students that are mild to moderate that are struggling in math and English, and then also those students that are in general ed that could be possibly identified as special ed. So we're trying to give them the tools so that we can accelerate their progress.
Any further questions? Do I have a motion?
I move for the approval of Compass Learning and Corp Math and Reading Software Program.
I'll second it.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you.
Thank you. Going on to the conference agenda, Dr. Cash, could you look at some of those items and see if there's any, as you think about it, that we can postpone? If you add up the time, it's another hour and a half.
Yes, we could postpone all of the board policies and administrative regulations for another meeting.
Is anybody here to talk about any of the board policies?
Nancy Weiss is here.
No.
She's here for the wellness.
Meg was going to report on.
Okay, so you're here for wellness?
Yes.
Well, I should have figured that. I was sitting next to Monica.
I was here for both, but I'm...
So yes, those could all be set aside and brought forward to another meeting.
We'll move if that's okay with the board, we'll move the policies to the next meeting. Okay, Wellness Committee update. Monica.
Good evening, and thank you, Board President Herron and esteemed board members, Dr. Cash, Dr. Drowdy, and Mr. Turina. Good evening. I'd like to start out today with a little Prezi made with my new iPad, funded by PTSA. Thank you, PTSA. So, ready for the first one. First off, the steering committee, this is the backbone of the Wellness Council. The steering committee is really the people who make the Wellness Council happen. And the steering committee is made up of Dr. Paul Cronshaw from La Cuesta, Claude Mann from Orfala, Joni Merrill, who is currently at San Marcos High School, Mitch Turina, and Nancy Weiss, our Food Services Director. This is what the school wellness policy assessment looks like. I just kind of took a little screenshot of the beginning of it, but it's 31 items, and our school sites fill this out at the beginning of the year and the end of the year to show us how far we are from being compliant with the wellness policy. And we can go on. The beginning of this year, in the fall, we had the best ever completion of the assessment. We had 19 out of 21 schools participate and complete the assessment. At this point, for the spring, I only have 11 out of 21 reporting, but they're still in the mail. They're trickling in, so I'm getting more and more responses. From the fall, again, we had, that's okay, 89% overall compliance. And this number is calculated by adding up the number of yeses versus nos on the compliance checklist. Last year we were at 91%, so not a whole lot of change from last year. Our focus areas from last year were to increase integration of nutrition education in the classroom, and increase good nutrition for classroom parties, and to increase physical activities for staff. But before we go to the next slide, I just want to talk to that a little bit. One of the ways I know that Joni Merrill has implemented one of the things she's implemented at San Marcos is she's put together a binder of ideas for staff. A lot of times we tell the staff, you gotta do things better, you gotta implement, healthy nutrition in your classroom parties, you have to do this, but we don't tell them how. And so that's one of the ways that Joni at San Marcos has actually done that, is put together a book of ideas. And so we're trying to do more and more of that for the staff. And physical activity for staff, these are my co-workers from the math department at DP. And we had, sponsored by the Letterman's Club, was lunchtime dodgeball. And so the math department named themselves Spheres of Glory. They competed 2 times and they were out. So it was a whole lot of fun. I was their cheerleader. I didn't go out and play because I thought I'd hurt myself. And so this was an example of a physical activity provided for staff, but it's not sustainable. So it was just one little thing, but I thought I'd include it because it's kind of a fun picture. So we're working on more physical activities for staff. So what did we do this year? We celebrated Food Day in October, and this was sort of a push from Orfala to get us going. We always have done Wellness Day in March, but this is another day where we focus on food and what is good food. We also celebrated Wellness Day, like I said, in March, and we're reviewing other workplace wellness programs that are perhaps more sustainable, and I've been working with Mr. Turina on that item. We did a vending machine fact-finding and proposed removing all of the vending machines, and we're working with Dr. Cash on that issue as well. And we're gathering up some recipes from our Wellness Council members. I'm hoping to put them together in some kind of a cookbook, but they're just trickling in at this point. And lastly, we are hosting one more meeting this year. We normally just have 3 meetings, but we decided to do one more. We're calling it a Taste of Wellness, and we're asking our representatives to bring a sample of a wholesome, healthy dish that they like, and we'll have a little celebration of what we've accomplished this year with some good food. And so here are some pictures from Wellness Day. Dos Pueblos had one of the favorite things I always enjoy in the top right corner there is a sampling of tea made from the herbs and things grown in the permaculture garden. So other healthy food samples were offered. And at San Marcos High School, they made smoothies. The Marines came on one of their days that they were allowed to come to campus and had a pull-up bar. They had smoothies and jump rope for the physical activity. For La Cuesta, Paul Cronshaw is very much into green smoothies, and he'll give you the recipe if you ask. It's probably, if you watch the E-News, it's probably going to be in the E-News soon, his recipe for a green smoothie. And at Monroe, The young girl in the green vest is called Healthy Heroes. And the pictures of these kids were really cute. On the back of their vest it says Healthy Hero, and there are 6th graders who help the younger students at the salad bar and encourage them to try a vegetable or a fruit that they haven't tried before. And Monroe also has a wonderful garden. If you haven't seen it, it's worth a trip. At McKinley, they had 3 areas that they focused on, both mental and physical wellness, and then nutrition. So for the mental wellness, they did what's called a feeling wall, and the kids would put up how they're feeling and appreciate other people's feelings. And then at Adams, smoothies again. Smoothies were very popular this year. I think the smoothie bike is probably going to need to be replaced because it's been used so much. And the report from Adams was that every student pedaled the bike for a smoothie. And before I get to this, I just wanted to add that this year, Open Alternative School has really joined the Wellness Council. Colleen's here, and I just wanted to mention that we haven't had a charter school participate on the Wellness Council before, so it's great to have her and her participation. And one of the things I wanted to mention that she said they do is they have an Iron Kid triathlon, and they do a run-bike obstacle course, and the students have to get their own sponsor to participate in the triathlon. And they don't compete against each other, they just compete against the clock and try to beat their own personal best. So for next year, one of the things I'd like to do at the beginning of the year is to provide more outreach to coaches and principals about the wellness policy and ideas for healthy fundraising and healthy classroom celebrations. We want to continue to work toward a workplace wellness program that's sustainable, something that we can carry on year to year. And I'd like to revise the school wellness policy. Instead of having a yes/no answer, have not meeting the standard, almost meeting the standard, and meeting the standard. So it's a little bit more meaningful. People that send in the assessment checklist say, well, we're kind of in process, so is that a yes or a no? How do I count that? So I'd like to have it as a scaled rating instead. And lastly, participate once again in the School Wellness Summit that's in October of 2015. Can I answer any questions?
Dr. Paz.
I actually have 2 questions. One is, do we have to think about vending machines as totally being bad? Because I saw something recently on News Hawk, like a local couple having a vending machine that was healthy food, you know? So I'm wondering if you guys have thought about that. That's my first question. Second question is, I'm wondering if we can think about extending our wellness policy, or even sort of the idea behind it, to our preschools. I think that would be a natural extension. Kids are always learning about food at that age. Certainly. Through my own job, we promote making sure kids drink water. Potter the Otter drinks water. That's a campaign that we do in First Five, and we're always looking at trying to increase wellness with preschool students, and it's a big thing for us. So I'm wondering if you could consider that as another area.
Certainly. One of the students at Dos Pueblos has a saying, don't criminalize the cupcake. And so I want to borrow that and say, don't criminalize the vending machine. I know there are vending machines available that have healthy items in them. Unfortunately, the ones that we have, other than water, have some things that we don't think are so healthy. So certainly there are options for other healthy vending. And secondly, we do have a representative on the council from Child Development, Erin Cavazos. So we have addressed the preschool healthy aspect as well.
Ms. Limon?
I also had the question about the vending machines and if we could change what was in them as opposed to get rid of them. But my other question has to do with something that we just heard the insurance presentation, and I happen to have an undergrad that's doing research on employment benefits for staff on wellness issue. So I'm just curious if there is any collaborations or further discussion on doing something, you know, I think the lunchtime program is great, but doing something related to like, would the insurance consider something that would be helpful to our staff in promoting healthy living, healthy eating?
Yes.
I mean, I know I have to I get an incentive as an employee if I fill out a survey and I earn 7,500 points. So on May 20th, I'm doing UC walks. But I don't know if there's those conversations happening.
They are.
Good, okay. Yeah.
Dr. Paz.
I know I've mentioned this before, but working for the county of Santa Barbara, we get an incentive for doing alternative transportation, whether it's bicycle, public transportation or walking. And part of that is, and I'm not necessarily proposing the district consider that, but there are obviously out there reasons. I walk to work every day. My incentive is that I get extra vacation. So, thinking outside of the box, so to speak, in terms of how can we do that in an affordable way. I'm not suggesting, because Meg Jate would probably kill me in giving more vacation time. And whether we can even do that in a contract is a whole other thing. But in the county, we've done that. We're looking at that actively, and it's just an idea and a thought to think about outside of the box in that regard.
Certainly. Thank
you. He lives half a block from his office. No, no, he doesn't. Okay. Ms. Adelson and myself both are liaisons to the Wellness Committee, and I think I've reported here many times. It's one of the liveliest groups that I've been part of. I mean, it really works, number one, but they also have a lot of fun. And Dr. Crenshaw keeps it that way, too.
He does.
So it's a wealth of information. Ms. Adelson?
And there's always wonderful snacks when we come.
From Nancy.
Yeah, you don't mention the gardening projects, and I know those have been big, and has the takeover by the sites worked out fine?
As far as I know, I don't have a lot of information on that at this time.
Because, I mean, in many of the meetings, that was sort of integral to the...
Right, the garden educators are getting sunsetted, the Orfla is sunsetting their part of it, but in our updates from our last meeting, there wasn't a lot of talk from them, the sites that had school gardens, other than at Monroe, where they had all the pictures of the things growing, and some of the kids actually have classes in the garden. But I haven't heard any repercussions about the garden educators being phased out.
Okay.
Well, I know I visited Monroe before school started. It was just about the first of school, and I met the educator there, and it was completely barren, nothing. And this last weekend, I looked down there, and it's overgrowing with stuff. So, and Adams has a great garden, too. So I think we have a lot of great gardens. But
so does Washington.
In Washington. Yeah.
So OAS has the biggest.
Yeah, we have a lot of gardens, and it's really great to see. It's a great educational experience, but it's also good to see them eat the food, too.
True.
Yeah. Okay, anything else? Thank you very much for the job you do, and it sounds like you're on board for next year.
I hope so.
Well, good.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Nancy, thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Okay, H2, Adams Elementary School and Washington Elementary School library updates.
Mr. Handel.
Thank you, Dr. Cash. Good evening, President Herron, members of the board. Tonight we have both principals from Washington and Adams School, Ms. Alzina and Ms. Sierra Lockridge, to talk about the exciting things that are going on at their sites in terms of their library construction. If I could have each one of them come up here. I want them to go over a couple of exciting things that's going on with their library and their vision and what plans they have for their site and their library specifically.
Yeah.
It's only one slide.
Okay. I just first want to say I feel so blessed to be a principal in this district. I work with amazing teachers each and every day who are so brilliant and so creative and allow me to be an effective leader and look towards the future because they're doing all the hard work in the trenches. And with that, I also want to say thank you to you all. Last week I had a donor come to our campus and walk through our campus and was just mesmerized by what they saw at Adams Elementary School, especially. I wasn't here to talk about our Montessori program last week, but our Montessori program, and asked, said, actually, does the board know about this? I said, not only does the board know about it, the board actually helped me along that process. And we have an amazing superintendent who allows me to be creative. And when I have pitch ideas to him, he says, go for it. And I realized at that moment when I was talking to him how unique and how special that is, and how really lucky I am as a principal to be able to grow in a district like this. So I just wanted to take a minute to say thank you, because I'm extremely thankful to you all for allowing me to be the leader I am. On that note, Dr. Cash and I, in September, we were exchanging emails, and we were talking about our computer lab and really how we're a one-to-one iPad school and wanting to make it a space that was an innovative space. And we were sharing, I sent him an email saying, well, what about the Stanford D School? He said, I was just thinking about that. And so he literally said, you're reading my mind. And so long story short, we met with Amir out at DP. And that was the beginning of our conversation of how can we bring that engineering strand and replicate what DP has done at an elementary level. I mean, Ellen November talked on Monday about making sure that districts are tapping into their greatest resources and sharing resources across the district. And here we have the #1 program in the world, but yet none of our elementary schools have tapped into that resource yet. And to have an opportunity to do that, so what we're wanting to do is, Sean Fetterbush, come over here. Sean is an amazing teacher at Adams Elementary School. He's a 5th grade teacher, and we're really wanting to move Sean over at DP next year, working side by side with Amir. And I'm just, for sake of time, I'm speeding things really quickly because I was told I only have 5 minutes, so I'm trying to stick to time. But Sean, if you could just quickly tell the board about your conversation with Amir and why we got to what we have right now.
Sure. Thank you, Amy. Thank you so much for your time. So, yeah, Amy said, would you like to run this STEAM lab? And I said, sure, that's great. So I went over to meet with Amir, and he said, Sean, very first thing out of my mouth, Sean, I think you should come here for a year, and I will mentor you, and you will be here for a year, and I will teach you how to be an engineer, and you can go back and do that at Adams. And I said, okay, I didn't know that, but that sounds great. I would love to do that. I don't know if Amy's up for that, but she was, and so that's why I'm here today. One thing that I was surprised about in my conversation with Amir was that I thought he would be like, Sean, I want you to train these students so when they get to my school, they can be fabulous. So he said, I don't care about that. What I care about is that you understand design principle. You understand how to break things apart, be curious about things, put things back together, be okay with persevering, failing, keep going. I want you to build that in your students. I can't teach that to an elementary school. I can't teach those students down there. You can. So I was like inspired. I'm like, oh, that sounds great. So I went back to Amy. She said, yeah, that sounds great. So the goals I want to share with you are, we really want to incorporate the design principles and the maker philosophy in our elementary schools. That's my #1 goal. My second goal is to build the digital literacy of my students and my community. So as a 5th grade teacher in the one-to-one iPad pilot program, when I have parents come in, they're really challenged with managing some of the iPads and the digital tools we gave them. Some of them are great at it, some of them need coaching. And I realize that's a need for our community. So that's another goal we have for the STEAM lab. Media skills. When I visited the MAD Academy at Santa Barbara High, I said, why doesn't everybody sign up for it? And he said, when I asked my juniors and seniors why they didn't sign up for it, a lot of them say, I didn't know what media skills were. I didn't know how to make a video. So that's another skills. And with the focus on presentation, now in November, I met with all the principals recently, and he said publication, presentation is such a big part of our digital literacy. That's another component I want to build. So sharing is caring. So one component of the digital maker philosophy is to share and document what you've done. And so I feel like everything I've learned has been through my mentor, has been through my teachers, has been through what I've learned on Twitter and Flipboard and all these online communities that I can read. And I want to continue that. Ellen November came to our schools and said, you need to leverage the expertise of your teachers and your expertise. And I want to develop that vertical integration between the high schools and the elementary schools and between the best teachers we have. And so how I'm going to do that? I'm going to publish all my projects. I'm going to publish the curriculum. I'm going to go out to schools and present to them and encourage them to share. I'm going to leverage EDU and our ability to share with teachers among not only the grade levels, but vertically and outside the schools. And I'm just going to engage in informal conversations. I know part of the conversation, the Todd Rickman's group, the what do we call ourselves? Technology Advisory Committee is how do we leverage all these great resources we have. And so I'm hoping that this project can be kind of a benchmark for us to present to you guys as a model that we can use to grow ourselves forward. Okay?
Thank you.
You're welcome. Do you guys have any questions?
Ms. Parker.
And that's essentially coming back to the elementary level a year after the library at Adams in particular opens. What's your plan for when the library actually is in operation the first year?
Thanks, Ms. Parker. You're right. And one of my goals is to not be absent from Adams next year, but to come in and teach after-school programs. I have a 6th grade son who will be in 6th grade next year. I'll be there every day. I want to continue to have conversations with my staff so I can give them projects to do in that lab, so I can give them the resources they need to create those tools, to get that momentum. Because when I come back and I got my 5th graders coming in, 6th graders, I want that momentum to be there and for them to have that rich engagement. Oh, we're going to the lab, great, we get to make things. So that's part of the goal.
And your child graduates.
I know, I've had 3 kids go through. I think it's such a wonderful resource, and I really appreciate, and Ms. Limon made this point as well, that this is not just about Adams. This is about the Adams space that we've made available through community. You know, the community has funded this at all of our schools in terms of having elementary library spaces, but also often computer lab spaces. I just really appreciate the direction that this is going, and I appreciate that this is something that's going to be shared at all of our elementary schools.
And not to put our library aside, because we are extremely grateful to have a new library. We've read over 40,000 books documented through Renaissance Learning's program. Today, 11 million more words than we did last year. So we are pushing literacy like none other, and so we need that library space, so thank you. All right.
Good evening. Likewise, I am very happy to be here and working with thoughtful leaders as well, and I'm super excited about our new library. Dr. Cash visited today, and you can see it really taking shape. And one of the first things that we're going to do is we're going to really celebrate that library and the community for making that possible through the Measure R funding, and have a big grand opening so that the community can know what direction we are going in. We are likewise very excited about their project because I want to be next on the list. And Sean can be invited anytime to the 5th grade PLC. As the PLC leader for the 5th grade, I know and appreciate and value his input so much. So excellent choice there. We are also going to be opening a STEM lab, which stands for Science, Technology, Engineering, and Math. And our focus will be to take our existing computer lab, which is in a portable, and relocate it, but totally upgrade it. We have new furnishings that will allow for collapsible and collaborative learning, so the teachers can design different learning spaces. We're also an iPad one-to-one pilot school, so 3rd through 6th graders have individual devices. This year with our parcel tax, I focused thinking, STEM lab, new library. We have 2 3D printers coming. We have iPad carts and a new printer for the lower campus, because right now, currently, all of our teachers have to go up by my office, which isn't so bad, by my office to get their printing needs, and having a new computer down below, a new printer, will make their lives a lot easier. We have a wonderful library tech, and she is super excited about the library. And inside the library, there is the built-in amphitheater for reading. We're really going to push AR as well, because we know that 11, how many words? 11 million words, that's power and literacy.
More than last year.
Okay, my turn.
39 million.
So likewise, literacy in the library will remain and will be a focus. We're very excited about the new building. When I first came to Washington, the plan was to put a 6th grade class in the building, and I thought that's really not equitable to have one 6th grade teacher not in a portable in a new classroom, and we want to make it a destination so that all of our K through 6 students will have an opportunity to do that. The other thing is we have a really amazing curriculum specialist. His name's Colin McNulty, and not only does he help us out with our SRI and right now we're doing Smarter Balance, but he does a fantastic job teaching typing, which we know is very important, as well as web design, programming. And we're going to fold into our new STEM lab our Wildcat Weekly web show, which is a 6th grade, kind of like an elective. They have to apply for it, and then they do the news, and it'll be blasted out to our parents, so that's a really good way to communicate with our families from a student point of view. And also folded into that is going to be robotics. We did the first Lego League challenge this year, and our students really loved it. It was through our PTO as an enrichment class, and we really want to start going in that direction as well. This year we had a science night, which was phenomenal. Over 200 families came, and we had UCSB with their touch tanks, and I held a snake. The kids were very excited to touch the pellets of the animals and to learn about physics, and it was just a really great night. And one of our partners was, of course, Santa Barbara Computer Academy. Paul Mule came and his people, and we really want to also establish that pathway for our students, whether it's to DP or Santa Barbara High School or San Marcos, but we want our students to understand that, our girls and our boys to understand that they can be engineers, that they can be programmers. So we are very much interested in this pilot and in the continuation of STEM, and we're very excited about our library. It'll be great not to have the construction noise, and it's going to be a beautiful addition to the campus and something that will be utilized by all students, because it'll be a destination for either science and technology, engineering and math, or for literacy, which we know are the skills that our children need to be 21st century ready. So.
I'll just comment. The only negativity I ever hear out in public is, why do they need libraries? This is the digital age. We don't need libraries. And you're not describing a library. This is far more than a library.
It is far more than a library.
So somehow the message has to be retuned that we aren't just building libraries. It's much more.
We're building the future.
Yeah, and it's a message that...
and that's why it's so important that we celebrate the new library when it opens up, and that we invite the public, and then we message that. And between, the power of literacy and AR to just the love of being able to hold a book, and for children to be able to sit and listen in an amphitheater, it's going to be beautiful. I got a sneak tour because I went with the Measure R committee, and the floors are beautiful, the furnishings are going to be great. It is going to be a really nice addition, a place that I know my Wildcat kids will have a lot of pride for, and we will enjoy for years to come. So I'm very, very excited about it.
Other comments? Thank you very much. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much for staying and sharing.
We'll now go to H7, discussion of work experience education plan.
Dr. Drotti.
Okay. The California Department of Education requires that local education agencies have, as part of their categorical program monitoring process, a current compliant work experience education plan on file at the Department of Education. So this is basically us being, you'll have to take action on this for us to submit it to the state.
Ms. Parker?
But we're not actually taking action tonight. Is this going to come back on a consent at some point?
Yes.
Is this much different? Is this any different from any of the plans that we've seen in the year? So it's essentially kind of pro forma at this point because we have an established plan. Okay, yes. I think it's been working, so I
don't have any questions. Do you want to make a motion to approve it?
So moved.
Second. Discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
I knew you said it was important to get it done quickly, right?
Yes.
There you go. It is now done.
Thank you. Let's see, H8, discussion of new classified positions, payroll retirement specialist, and a senior plumber.
Dr. Christensen. Oh, Mr. Tangway. Oh, they are both classified.
What in the heck?
She's always trying to butter me up late at night here. So we are here before you to present a couple of positions that we would like to propose to add to our classified family. The first one is a payroll retirement specialist. So for those of you who were on the board back in 2010, you might remember that FCMAT came in and did a study of our payroll operations. They found some deficiencies. They made some recommendations, and one of the recommendations was to have a classified position that specialized in retirement, in STRS for teachers and PERS for classified. And that was in 2010. So keep in mind that since then, we've had the public employment, the PEPRA, in other words, the retirement reform, which has made retirement calculations and everything else about retirement systems much more complicated in payroll. So what we are finding, and I'm sure Meg will second this, is that the workload has increased, the complexity has increased, and it's overwhelming our one management person who tries to do all of that. So what we are proposing is to add a classified position at range 52 who will specialize in CalSTRS and CalPERS. And I think Meg will also second that STRS and PERS are coming down with audits much more frequently now than they have in the past, because frankly they want to make sure they're getting all the money they're supposed to get. And so we don't want to be penalized, we don't want to make mistakes, and so we think having a person with this specialty will help us to avoid some of those potential pitfalls.
Questions on that position? Who's doing it now?
Go ahead.
Well, the payroll coordinator is doing it now, along with trying to implement the Munis financial system and all the, the work pass, and it's an overwhelming amount of work. And so this would free that person up to do more training of her staff, to work on processes, to make things more efficient, to do customer service, to do a whole host of other things that need to be done.
The next.
I just had a question.
Ms.
Do you have the chart, or can you ballpark range 52? Oh, okay. Excuse me. Dr. Paz just called that.
25 to 35.
Thank you.
And the next position that we are asking you to consider adding to the classified scheme is a senior plumber. So let me just explain sort of what the thinking is here. And kind of looking at an environmental scan about the future of the district, as you can all imagine, our plumbing, just our plumbing in our facilities is pretty complicated. We have old buildings, we have new buildings, we have a whole host of different kinds of plumbing issues. And what we're trying to do is build in a career, sort of a career step. Right now, if you come in as a plumber, you're going to be a plumber, and that's it. There's no step, there's nowhere to go. So that hurts us for recruitment and retention. We'd like to add at least one position where someone could come in at an entry journey level and move up to a master level. We have one plumber now who's at that level. We would assume he would apply for this position, and we want that person to mentor other people so that we can build our own internal capacity, because what we're finding is it's difficult to recruit for these positions. We've been trying to find an HVAC mechanic since January of this year. Can't do it. And I foresee in the future we're going to have similar issues. So when we do get qualified people, we need to give them some incentive to stay. And by building in these job families as we have in the paraeducator class and also in ETS, maybe that increases our odds a little bit. So that's the intent behind this is to build our own internal capacity.
Thank you. Any questions? Ms. Parker?
Do we have the equivalent in any of other trades?
We don't. So my idea, my wish would be to have a senior carpenter, a senior electrician, and all those really key maintenance fields. I'd love to have a place for people to come in and move to, because we're going to have that same problem, I think, in recruiting in the future.
Okay, and have there been any discussions with CSEA about either one of these positions?
They are wildly in favor.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Adelson?
Does the head of the group receive more senior, I mean, the person who's become more senior, do they get acknowledged for that currently?
No.
Okay.
Like if you're an electrician, you're an electrician. Doesn't matter if you've been here 10 years or 25.
Or 10 days.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. These
Thank
come
you.
back on the consent calendar.
Thank you.
Okay, let's move to coming events. I know that there are several ICANN art projects coming up in the next week or 10 days. I urge any of you who can attend any of those to go see them. There's also music programs coming up at Franklin by ICANN and also at the West Side by ICANN. Something new. Both those will be interesting. And then May 20th, we have the retirement event for the staff members who are retiring. And so hopefully you can come to those things. Anything else on the event calendar?
Well, we actually had a request or an inquiry from the Goleta Union School District about a potential joint meeting between you and their school board. And tentatively looking at late summer, early fall as a potential day time frame. How does that seem to everybody? Okay, with your direction, then I'll move forward with Mr. Banning, and we'll put out some tentative dates.
Anybody else?
On that note, I didn't know if we wanted to bring up the perhaps interest or not for a special workshop for the board on summer learning.
Oh, yes. Well, I'm working with, gosh, I only know his first name. Do you remember his last name? Peter from CSBA.
It's in my email.
And once I get a little bit more information on like what their availability is, then I'll bring that forward.
And just so the rest, I don't know if all the board knows, it would be a special workshop on summer learning opportunities to help us think about those if we want those in the
And
district.
put on by CSBA?
It's, yes, put
And
on
paid for by them?
And paid for by them,
Yeah.
yes.
It's a 3-hour session. Ms. Parker?
Just a quick question on the May 19th meeting. It starts at 5 p.m. This is the Facilities Board workshop. How long is that due to run for?
2 hours max. The presentation by LPA is 30 to 40 minutes. So anticipate an hour's worth of questions and comments from board members.
Great, thank you.
Okay, that's it. Thank you.